Our boy literally plunges his armored gauntlet straight into the chest of a giant monster, rips out its squirming red core, and crushes it into 20 pieces. No hesitation. The elite Holy Knights watching are completely traumatized by his dark power, but this dude is actually just a hardcore roleplayer having the time of his life. He drops some peak edgy dialogue to maintain his lone wolf persona and walks away, completely unaware that the logout button is about to vanish. It all starts when this dedicated gamer boots up the virtual reality remake of his favorite classic game. Our main character starts by introducing himself as a hardcore roleplayer. He plays games purely for the sake of having fun and is absolutely locked into the ultimate fantasy aesthetic here. No matter what kind of game he booted up, he always made sure to fully immerse himself in the role. Just look at this giant skull demon towering over him. That is some serious boss fight energy. He leaps through the air and dodges attacks on a glowing purple energy field like a seasoned pro. It honestly looks like he is trying to survive an absolute bullet hell. And the best part is that he has absolutely zero regrets or shame about his Chuanibu role-playing style. You really have to respect that level of sheer confidence. But right now, this massive skeleton boss is utterly roasting him for doing nothing but running away like a complete coward. Talk about an aggressive welcoming committee. The demon tells him to just die already and launches a barrage of deadly strikes right at his face. This is definitely turning into a highly one-sided fight. Or at least that was his mindset, until he actually logged into this absolute garbage fire of a game. Now, he is just free-falling in complete despair. He coughs up a massive amount of blood. The pain feels way too realistic to be a simple game. This is definitely not the fun virtual reality experience he signed up for. He starts questioning why he has to suffer so much just to enjoy a game. All he wanted was a little escape from his exhausting real life, but instead he got a total nightmare. Gritting his teeth with blood dripping down his chin, he curses out the boss with everything he has left. He is clearly reaching his absolute boiling point. Standing his ground, he grips his sword as a dark aura flares up all around him. It looks like he is preparing to unleash one final desperate strike. The skull demon just laughs in his face and tells him to hurry up and die since a weakling like him cannot do anything. This boss is really pushing his luck. The boss keeps taunting him and asks if he really wants to die that badly. But our hero is busy gathering every single ounce of his remaining power. In his mind, he screams that he is completely done with this hardcore role-playing garbage. He does not care about the game anymore because he just wants his normal life back. He roars out at the top of his lungs and demands to finally be let go so he can return home. This is the cry of a man who is completely done with gaming. The sheer intensity of his desperation triggers a massive burst of red energy that wipes everything out around him. That is one way to rage quit a boss fight. Suddenly, a high-tech system screen pops up to confirm that the user connection has been successfully established. It seems like the actual game is finally loading up. Now we transition into a tragic flashback from his character lore. It all started when his little sister ran out of the house because she happily thought their father had returned. But instead of their father, there was only a pitch-black blade waiting for them. The beautiful white dress he bought her for her birthday was instantly dyed in her own blood. He screams out her name in absolute horror as he witnesses the gruesome scene unfold right in front of him. This backstory is incredibly dark and depressing. Next to fall was his older brother, who held the prestigious title of Head Knight. But even his combat training was not enough to save him from the dark blade. After his brother fell, his older sister took over the mantle of Head Knight and charged forward with pure rage. She was determined to avenge her fallen family. He recalls seeing tears in her eyes as she fought with everything she had. She knew deep down that it was a losing battle. The despair in this flashback is unreal. But her bravery did not save her, and she was quickly cut down as well. Her tears were swallowed by a brutal spray of blood. His mother desperately screamed for him to run away while wielding whatever weapon she could grab. He could not even tell if it was a kitchen knife or his father's sword. The young boy sobbed and begged to stay and fight because he wanted to be a knight too, but his mother insisted he had to be the one to survive. He remembers his father being there as well, but his memories of that moment are nothing but a horrific and chaotic blur of violence. Driven by pure adrenaline and terror, the young boy picked up a sword himself and was determined to fight back. Everything around him turned completely red with blood and then went entirely white as his consciousness began to fade out. He eventually woke up panting in a dark forest that was illuminated by nothing but a single pale ray of moonlight. His vision kept flickering between white and black as he struggled to understand what was happening to his body. He realizes a dark and cursed blade has pierced directly through his right arm and embedded itself deep under his skin. He trips and falls in the woods. He screams out in agony as the corruption begins to spread through his arm. Groaning on the damp forest floor, he tries his best to clutch his arm and stop the unbearable burning pain. Suddenly, a terrifying, shadowy figure appears right behind him. The demon grins creepily and calls him a fine vessel. This is highly concerning. The poor kid can only stutter out in sheer terror as the shadow starts wrapping around him. The demon proclaims that he will make a perfect vessel for its dark power and completely engulfs his arm in cursed energy. The demonic presence demands a soul that can overcome absolute malice, and it starts testing his mental limits. It searches for someone strong enough to never crumble before evil. It wants a true warrior capable of triumphing over the demons themselves. A mysterious voice echoes through the white void and asks if he can hear it. He snaps back to reality with a huge gasp, and his eyes are wide with shock. He sits up and pants heavily as he tries to process the insane dream he just had. Wait, is he back to his adult self? A nearby coachman suddenly barks at him and asks if he is planning to get off the carriage or just sit there all day. He looks around and notices he has arrived at the Tatara trading post. It is a super lively fantasy town bustling with people, kids cheering. He is completely speechless as he stares at the incredibly detailed environment. It looks way too real to be a video game. The carriage driver is still complaining and mutters that the guy gave him quite a scare by just sitting there like a statue. He slowly steps down from the carriage and his leather boots click against the stone ground. The driver walks off while grumbling about him being a total weirdo, but our hero could not care less. He adjusts his eye patch and takes a deep breath so he can stay in character despite the confusion. In his mind, he is absolutely losing it with joy, because the level of immersion in this VR game is utterly insane. He is completely blown away by the realism of the tutorial and how the NPCs look and behave exactly like real human beings. He is so hyped he wants to start dancing right in the middle of the street, but he has to make sure he keeps up his dark and edgy persona. This is the official launch day of the highly anticipated VR game, Legend of Heroes, and this trading post is the designated starting tutorial area. The original game was a tragic masterpiece that shut down years ago, and this is its brand new cutting-edge virtual reality remake. As a die-hard fan of the original, he was one of the many players who eagerly awaited this release. He looks up at the beautifully rendered blue sky and feels deeply emotional about finally playing it. And of course, he is going to play it the only way he knows how, as an absolute hardcore roleplayer. He seriously strikes a dramatic Chunibu pose right in public and complains that his eyes are burning. The secondhand embarrassment is hitting incredibly hard right now. He quickly tries to clarify in his head that he does not actually have Chunibyo and just wanted to try out that star aesthetic once. Sure, buddy, whatever helps you sleep at night. He insists on explaining his character concept to us and even shows off the custom sketch he personally drew for his avatar. His custom class is the Demon Knight. It is a high difficulty class where the very demon that slaughtered his family is sealed inside his own arm. The lore states that using the demon power will slowly devour his soul and leave him trapped in a tragic loop of vengeance that is incredibly dark. Because of this curse, everyone who gets close to him is destined to suffer a horrific fate just like his poor family did. He vows that his enemies will only meet their end by his own hands to seal his tragic fate. To protect others, his character purposely distances himself from everyone. He hides his lonely and unstable heart behind a cold and sharp exterior. And he proudly concludes that this is his ultimate character concept. Look how incredibly pleased he is with his own edgy writing. Ta-da, oh-2. He admits he paid a couple $100 of real money to customize his gear, but he has absolutely no regrets because it looks so cool. Realizing he is smiling too much, he quickly snaps back into character and tells himself it is time to get serious. But then, a very awkward realization hits him. He actually has absolutely no idea what he is supposed to do next. He looks around expecting a standard quest window or user interface to pop up, but nothing is appearing. There is no minimap and no quest log. He wonders if he is just supposed to stand here and wait for an NPC to guide him. Right on cue, a young boy NPC approaches him nervously and asks if he is the adventurer known as the Demon Knight. He stands there completely silent and realizes that there are no dialogue options popping up for him to select. With 0 game prompts appearing, he has no choice but to awkwardly reply using his actual voice to confirm his identity. He hits the kid with his deepest and edgiest voice and tells him to simply lead the way. The poor kid flinches in pure terror and is completely intimidated by our hero and his dark aura. The boy quickly turns around and guides him towards the Adventurer Guild while keeping a very safe distance. In his mind, our hero is giggling and telling the kid not to be so scared because he is actually a super nice guy. He overhears various NPCs in the street talking about profits, taxes, and demons. Their conversations are incredibly realistic and do not feel scripted at all. He figures that even though the AI has progressed incredibly fast, they are still just programmed NPCs at the end of the day. The boy stops in front of a massive grand building and announces that they have finally arrived. Our hero goes wide-eyed as he takes in the sheer scale of the guild headquarters. They step inside the Tatara Adventurer Guild, which is packed with tough-looking mercenary types. He stomps his foot on the floorboards and is completely amazed that even the texture of the wooden planks feels authentic. He jokingly wonders if the game company kidnapped an alien to build this. A friendly female guild clerk greets them warmly and is glad to see that they finally made it. She introduces herself as HEROINE and welcomes him to the guild with a polite smile. She notes that his unique features made him incredibly easy to spot and asks if he can present his adventurer token as a standard formality. Right as she asks, his virtual inventory screen pops up to display his gathered items. But the massive screen pops up directly in front of his face and completely blocks his view of the lovely clerk. He chuckles to himself and thinks that even a near-perfect game has some goofy UI flaws that give it a bit of human charm. He pulls out his silver token and hands it over to her so she can quickly confirm his identity. She explains that the client is in a very urgent situation and offers to lead him to them immediately. He gets a bit nervous because he knows this is the crucial tutorial quest from the original game. Even though he knows the plot, the realism is making his heart race. They arrive to meet the client. A grumpy, muscular old guildmaster instantly insults our hero by calling him a massive pain in the ass. Done, done, done. HEROINE panics and tries to calm down the angry old man, while our hero is secretly impressed by how much attitude this NPC has. He realizes that since this guy is just a bunch of programmed code, he can totally unleash his inner keyboard warrior without feeling any moral guilt. He remembers that failed affinity can sometimes lock you out of quests, but since this is just the tutorial, he figures he can say whatever he wants. Meanwhile, the old man demands to know why he is staying quiet. HEROINE is practically sweating bullets at this point and begs the guildmaster to watch his language before he ruins the contract. Our hero smirks as he finally decides on the perfect, edgiest line to deliver to this grumpy old-timer. He glares deeply at the old man with glowing red eyes and tells him that his tongue severely lacks manners. Oh, the drama. The entire room goes completely silent as everyone stares at him in sheer disbelief. Even his guide is sweating bullets at this legendary display of disrespect. He starts sweating as he notices how genuinely shocked and offended the NPCs look. This is not how regular NPCs are supposed to react. A chilling realization starts to creep in as he looks at their intensely serious, unscripted expressions. Looking back, he really should have put the pieces together right at that exact moment, but it was already too late. Our hero is left wondering why the NPC guildmaster and the clerk look so completely traumatized by his edgy comment. He really did not expect them to react with such actual offense. Instead of the standard quest window, a prompt from the Merchant Guild appears and practically dares him to read the details of the job. He is still waiting for a normal system prompt. HEROINE asks him if he really volunteered without even knowing what the job was. He stays fully in character and replies that he does not need a choice if his destiny dictates it. Secretly, he is absolutely loving this level of realism because it is a dream come true for a hardcore roleplayer. Honestly, he is ready to treat this entire thing as high-tier gameplay content. The clerk just stares at him with a look of pure pity and concern. She probably thinks he has completely lost his mind. Our hero continues his edgy monologue and questions if whatever they want him to fight could actually pose a threat to his dark power. He is really laying it on thick. He narrows his eyes dramatically and refers to the monsters as nothing more than pathetic insects. He is really trying to build up that legendary Demon Knight aura. The clerk continues to sweat nervously and is completely taken aback by his extreme confidence and dramatic flair. Another guild worker steps in to calm things down and suggests they just get right into the details of the request. The old man still looks highly irritated. The worker explains that something has gone terribly wrong down in the city sewers. They have sent several workers down to investigate, but not a single one has returned. It turns out the dark sewers have become completely infested with terrifying flesh-eating demons. That is definitely not a job for normal sewer maintenance workers. They want him to go down there and wipe out the entire demon nest and recover whatever belongings the lost workers left behind. This is starting to sound like a classic gruesome tutorial quest. The old guildmaster warns him that every single demon hunter they hired before was completely slaughtered. Apparently the Holy Temple is far too slow to act, so they are desperate. He then sizes up our hero and his slim build and openly doubts if someone with such a frail body can even lift a heavy sword. HEROINE quickly tells him to show some respect. Our hero just scoffs at the doubt and tells him not to dare compare him to those weaklings. He insists that clearing out a demon nest is as easy as taking out the trash. The guildmaster clicks his tongue in annoyance and mutters about his absolute arrogance before walking away in a huff. Inside his mind, our hero is sweating bullets and feels a bit bad for acting like such a massive jerk. The NPC reactions are so realistic that he genuinely feels the urge to break character and apologize. He imagines standard online players trolling him for his insane roleplay style. Honestly, he is just glad there are no real players around to witness this cringe. The clerk holds out the contract and asks one final time if he is truly accepting this dangerous request. He replies with a cool and simple confirmation. She begins preparing the official contract and outlines his primary objective to exterminate the sewer demons and recover the lost items. He asks how many workers actually went missing down there, and the guild assistant reveals it is a total of 13 people. He then inquires about the time limit for the quest. He realizes he still has not seen a single quest prompt and is forced to progress through natural conversation alone. He's seriously impressed by how dedicated this game is to maximum realism. HEROINE announces the massive reward is 400,000 gal, but they will be taking a 5% brokerage fee from his payout. He is absolutely shocked by the sheer amount but also highly offended by the sudden tax. He tries to convince himself to let the fee go since it is just a game mechanic, but he still feels a profound sense of emptiness inside. No one likes getting their hard-earned loot taxed. The contract is officially finalized, and she cheerfully tells him to make sure he reports back directly to her once the mission is complete. She hands him the pen and asks him to sign on the dotted line. Right as he does, a familiar notification sound rings in his ears. Ting! Finally, the actual quest window pops up right in front of his face to show his clear sewer cleansing objectives. He mutters under his breath about the devs making him wait until after signing the paperwork. Despite his complaints, he flashes a happy little smile because he actually loves this level of detail. He is in absolute role-playing heaven right now. The guild worker tells him they have already reserved a room for him at the local inn and hands over a physical map of the sewers that he can keep. He looks down at the hand-drawn parchment and realizes that this is literally his in-game minimap. He is starting to see that this game takes the no UI rule very seriously. The worker looks him dead in the eye and tells him they are completely counting on him to get the job done. He notices a deep sense of genuine worry in the worker eyes. It is like someone sending a warrior to a battlefield they might never return from. This is some next-level AI performance. He is left completely speechless once again by how incredibly lifelike and detailed these NPCs are written to be. As he descends the dark stone stairs into the sewers, he admits to feeling a bit nervous. It is like an actor stepping onto a grand theater stage. He resolves that since he accepted the contract, failure is out of the question. The massive iron security gates slowly grind open with a heavy metallic screech to reveal the dark path ahead. He steps through the threshold into the dark and damp underbelly of the city to begin his hunt. The guard at the entrance repeats how much they are counting on him and warns him that the demons down there are absolute trouble. Our hero just casually nods and waves him off. He proudly unsheathes his massive greatsword and boasts about its lore as a weapon of ultimate destruction. He is highly pleased with his pay-to-win aesthetic choice. Within seconds of stepping inside, a giant sewer rat lunges at him, but he instantly cleaves it in half with one clean sweep of his blade. He poses dramatically over the split corpse of the rat and keeps his dark warrior expression perfectly locked in. But in reality, he is panicking inside because that one simple swing made a deafening metallic noise. He quickly checks his sword stats and groans upon seeing the durability has already dropped. He realizes that the tight and cramped sewer tunnels are a terrible environment for a giant greatsword. He decides it is best to swap to something a little more practical before he accidentally shatters his expensive weapon. He equips a standard and well-balanced longsword instead. This is much better suited for close-quarters sewer combat. With his proper gear finally set up, he gets super excited and declares that he is officially ready to begin the demon hunt. He walks deeper into the dark and foggy tunnels with his sword held ready as a faint dark purple energy surrounds him. The guard at the gate watches him go and remains completely silent as our hero disappears into the pitch blackness. The guard mutters to himself in awe and states that the demon knight is genuinely terrifying and easily in a league of his own. It seems his edgy roleplay is working a little too well on the locals. The guard silently prays for his success and hopes that his actual combat skills are just as exceptional as his imposing presence. A short while later, deep within the winding, slimy sewer tunnels, our hero is gritting his teeth in pure rage and calls out the demons with absolute hatred in his eyes. He executes a series of incredibly fast and brutal slashes. He cleaves through a horde of ugly green sewer goblins like hot butter. Damage. Green blood splatters all over the stone walls as he cuts down monster after monster with absolute precision. He spins around to deliver a final and devastating blow to a goblin trying to sneak up behind him. He stares down the last remaining beast with a chilling glare and promises to send it straight back to the fiery depths of hell. The severed head of the goblin slides across the wet stone floor and completely silences the tunnel. He steps right over the severed head and tosses out a classic edgy one-liner about how utterly boring the fight was. He looks over the massive pile of 71 dead monsters he just cleared out. He acts disgusted that the town actually let such pathetic weaklings run rampant down here. But right as he finishes his cool victory pose, he lets out a long and heavy sigh. He completely breaks character and throws a massive temper tantrum. He screams about how he cleared all those mobs and did not get a single item drop. He is officially calling this game absolute trash. Fart with Rever Goofy. He suddenly realizes why the quest reward was so insanely high in the first place. The drop rates down here are completely non-existent. He weeps in game developer betrayal. The high quest pay was just compensation for the terrible lack of monster drops. He is so salty about the lack of loot that he seriously considers rummaging through the dirty goblin corpses for any loose change. But he quickly realizes he has to stop complaining because there is a literal child trapped in vines hanging from the ceiling. The kid is watching his entire embarrassing breakdown. He steps forward and cleanly slices through the vines to let the screaming child drop safely to the ground. He effortlessly catches the boy on his shoulder like a complete badass to prevent him from hitting the hard stone floor. The dazed kid hangs there upside down and weakly thanks him for the rescue. A system notification pops up to confirm that he has successfully completed the optional quest objective to rescue the child. Ting. He looks closely at the boy and realizes he looks a little bit older than his character's deceased younger brother from the tragic opening cutscene. He recalls his character's tragic lore and marvels at how his character has not completely lost his mind despite harboring the very demon that slaughtered his family. The character profile simply listing him as a bit sensitive is a hilarious understatement. He gently pats the kid head and stays in character as he silently expresses his gratitude that he could save at least one innocent life this time. He reasons that while his edgy character would not openly talk about his feelings, his cold exterior would definitely soften up just a little bit around children. He strikes a highly heroic pose and reminds himself that protecting the weak is simply the fundamental duty of a true knight. The young boy looks up at him with wide and hopeful eyes to ask if he is a real knight. Our hero decides there is absolutely no way he's going to act like a cold jerk to a literal kid, especially with how realistic the NPCs in this game are. He asks the boy why he was trapped down here in the first place. The kid sadly explains that his mother came down to clean the sewers and never returned. With tears in his eyes, the boy apologizes and explains that he only came down here because he wanted to look for his missing mother. Our hero feels a heavy pang of sadness in his chest. He firmly tells the boy that children are supposed to be happy and that this was not his responsibility. He gently scolds him that he should have stayed safe and trusted the adults. The poor kid bursts into tears and continuously apologizes for his mistake. He picks up the crying child and tells him not to apologize to him since he is not the one who needs to hear it. He's really trying to comfort him while keeping up his cool persona. He decides to show the young boy the various belongings he managed to recover from the fallen workers earlier. Unfortunately, the young boy instantly recognizes his mother's distinct items sitting right next to a gruesome skeleton. The boy begins to sob uncontrollably in absolute heartbreak. Our hero feels so terrible that he cannot even bring himself to tell the kid to stop crying. After the poor boy eventually cries himself to sleep from exhaustion, our hero has no choice but to carry him all the way out of the dark sewers. He thinks about how game developers use real child actors for motion capture. He marvels at how talented this kid must have been. Even though he knows it is all just a video game, the realism makes it incredibly hard to not feel genuinely heartbroken. He sighs with relief and quietly thanks goodness that this tragic situation is ultimately just a virtual reality video game. He steps onto a glowing magic circle on the floor, which triggers a system prompt about purifying areas corrupted by the demonic realm. A bright and cleansing light envelops the sewer to declare that the corruption has been completely cleared. But looking back, he realizes he should have paid much closer attention to that purification message. He wonders if doing so would have saved him from one of his biggest future regrets. Suddenly, a panicked guild assistant rushes into the room and screams at the top of his lungs that they urgently need immediate reinforcements. The assistant reports that the Merchant Guild emergency flare has just been fired nearby to signal an absolute catastrophe. He explains that it is a red flare which specifically indicates that there are already multiple severe casualties on the scene. Alert. We cut to a horrifying scene of skeletal monsters brutally slaughtering merchant guards in a blood-red forest. It is an absolute emergency. A dying soldier looks up in sheer terror. His face is covered in fresh blood as the monsters close in on him. A young merchant boy clutches his chest in absolute panic while surrounded by the lifeless bodies of his fallen comrades. He desperately covers his mouth to try and stop himself from making a sound as a terrifying shadow slowly looms over him. Creepy piano. After leaving the dark sewers, the young boy finally starts to calm down. He looks up and asks if his mother is truly happy now that she is by God's side. Our hero thinks to himself that if there actually is a god in this universe, it would probably be the game developers. He softly replies with a simple yes to comfort the kid. Inside his head, he is desperately hoping that the developers are not complete psychopaths so that the kid mother is indeed at peace. He is genuinely stressed out by how emotional this game story is making him. They walk back into the Adventurer Guild and the clerk looks surprised to see him return so quickly with a child. She glances down at the exhausted boy and immediately wonders who he is and why the Demon Knight is carrying him. He explains that the boy is the child of a laborer who went down into the sewers searching for his missing parents. He tells her to ask the kid directly for any further details. He then hands over a massive and heavy sack of recovered belongings to the clerk. She looks completely bewildered by the sudden cargo. In his mind, he realizes she just grabbed the bag automatically when he offered it. He explains that these are the recovered belongings from the deceased workers except for the boy mother items which he already gave to him. She clutches the bag wide-eyed and asks if these actually belong to all 13 missing people. He drops another cold and edgy response and asks what else it could possibly look like. She stammers in shock and quickly promises to deliver the items to the grieving clients so they can confirm the identities of their lost loved ones. She opens the bag and looks inside. Her hand trembles as she sees the blood-stained adventurer tags recovered from the depths of the sewers. She stares at the tags with a deeply sorrowful look and is completely overwhelmed by the reality of the tragedy. She bows deeply to him to express her sincere gratitude on behalf of the entire guild for completing such a dangerous and tragic task. In his mind, he is screaming that they better be grateful considering he had to navigate that massive labyrinth of a sewer with 0 map markers. He recalls running around in circles cursed by the developer's obsession with realism. However, seeing her express such genuine gratitude with a choked-up voice instantly melts away all of his irritation. He is starting to realize that his over-immersion in this game might be getting a little bit scary. She asks if this concludes his hunting for the day, but our hero just stands there looking completely confused. He wonders what kind of absolute nonsense she is talking about, since no self-respecting hardcore gamer would ever stop grinding. She awkwardly asks if he is actually heading back down into the sewers, and suggests he might want to take a break first. He recalls that he is currently on a full dive gaming session, which means he broke his savings account just to lock himself in a VR capsule for over 24 hours straight. There is no way he is wasting his precious time resting. He wonders if there is actually a hidden linked quest in the sewers, or if the game is just telling him to rest because the map is too long. He stays in character and asks her why he would possibly need to return to the sewer. He suddenly remembers the purification system and realizes he only left the sewer earlier because he was worried about taking debuff damage. He asks if she is telling him that he needs to perform a purification down there. She looks completely blank and stammers. She clearly has absolutely no idea what purification even means. The young guild assistant steps in sweating nervously as he asks if the demon knight really wiped out every single demon in the sewer by himself. Our hero retorts and asks why else they thought he would walk all the way back here. The assistant timidly whispers that they assumed he just returned to drop off the rescued child. He thinks to himself that while he did not clear the dungeon record fast, their stunned reactions are incredibly dramatic. He is loving how his normal grinding speed is treated like a legendary feat by these NPCs. He narrows his eyes and hits them with a menacing glare. He asks if they are daring to look down on his capabilities. The sheer edge is off the charts. The poor clerk starts waving her hands in a total panic and desperately apologizes. She insists that she would never look down on him and is completely terrified of making this edgy customer angry. She quickly pivots and promises that they will take great care of the rescued child. She asks him to wait a moment while she goes to fetch the guildmaster and invites him to follow her. While he waits, he decides it is the perfect opportunity to check his level up progress and inspect his newly unlocked skills. The system officially marks his sewer cleansing quest as complete, and the guild presents him with a hefty jingling pouch containing his massive reward. He realizes the game developers are absolutely ruthless with the economy by making quests the only viable way to earn money. He reminisces about how 15 years ago quests gave barely anything, and players had to grind monster drops to survive. The guild assistant suddenly tells him they have decided to fully cover his brokerage fee because the demon loot they recovered will fetch an incredibly high price. Our hero is pleasantly surprised by this unexpected discount. He notices a passive lifestyle skill called butchering in his menu and realizes he can probably make a decent side profit harvesting monster parts. He shrugs and thinks that even if he knew about it, he still would have dumped all his points into combat skills anyway. He rationalizes his build-in character and claims that he has no interest in collecting loose change from pathetic bugs. That is right. A true hardcore role player always allocates their skill points strictly based on their character dark lore. Efficiency does not matter when you have an aesthetic to maintain. Plus, since this is a single-player game, he does not have to worry about playing a specific party role. He can spec his build however he wants, and hopes to unlock even edgier and cooler skills in the future. Just as he finishes organizing his build, the grumpy old guildmaster stomps back into the room and demands to know if their business is finally concluded. Our hero dramatically turns around and states that since their transaction is complete, there is no longer any reason for him to stay. Suddenly, a panicked guard bursts in and yells for the guildmaster. The grumpy old man instantly roars back and asks if the guard rear end is on fire and why he is running around like a wild animal. Our hero is quietly amused and thinks the guildmaster acts exactly like a foul-mouthed neighborhood grandpa. He is highly impressed by how well written his stubborn personality is. The guard gasps for air and desperately shouts that they have just received an urgent distress signal from nearby. He reports that their official guild signal flare went up just outside the town limits. The atmosphere in the room instantly turns dead serious. While the old man complains about the sluggish local guards, our hero is secretly excited. He realizes the game is smoothly transitioning him directly into the next major questline. The guildmaster rants about how the city guards take all their tax money and do absolutely nothing, so he demands they send their own mercs immediately. He suddenly points directly at our hero and orders him to join the rescue squad. Our hero is totally down to go, but insists on delivering his pre-written edgy dialogue first. He hits the old man with a bone-chilling glare and coldly tells him to never dare order him around. The absolute confidence on this man is unreal. The guildmaster yells back about loyalty and calls him a scoundrel, but promises to pay him handsomely if he just goes. Hey, money talks. He accepts the terms and declares that a new contract has been formed. He tells the guard to lead the way. The clerk bids him a safe journey and promises to have the paperwork ready when he returns. Right on cue, a new quest titled People in Danger pops up on his interface. He smiles and is glad that the game progression is working flawlessly. The guard suggests that they join up with the mercenary group first, but our hero quickly cuts him off and states that such support is entirely unnecessary. He demands to be led directly to where the battle is. He looks over the grim details of the quest and realizes that this is a time attack mission where every single second counts. If they waste time regrouping, the survivors will surely be wiped out. Back at the guild, the old master tells the worried clerk to just let him go alone, since a monster who cleared the entire sewer by himself will not die easily. Our hero is secretly cheering for the old man, hyping him up. He boasts that horseback riding is going to be a complete piece of cake. He claims he is basically a licensed professional thanks to his hundreds of hours in a simulator game. He leaps onto the horse and rides out of the city gates at full speed. He silently begs the survivors to hold on until his precious experience points arrive. The sky turns into a deep and bloody red sunset as they race toward the forest, setting an incredibly ominous tone for the battle ahead. He hears loud explosions and sees bright fires erupting through the thick tree line ahead. The battle has definitely already begun. Scream. He draws his sword and begins chanting his signature Chuanibu incantation to dedicate victory to his blade. He leaps off his speeding horse directly into the chaos and instantly slices through the surrounding monsters with a massive sweeping attack. He lands gracefully amidst the dust and fire and shouts out the final line of his cool chant for glory. The battered mercenaries cry out in absolute relief that reinforcements have finally arrived, though they quickly panic when they realize it is just one single guy. One of the guards is pinned down by a beast and screams in desperation that he cannot afford to die right when help has finally shown up. Our hero blitzes forward and brutally slashes the monster off of him to save his life in the nick of time. He stands tall amidst the spreading flames and is surrounded by a swirling aura of red combat energy. With his glowing red sword in hand, he slowly marches directly toward the massive horde of monsters guarding the supply wagon. He looks down at the injured man and asks if he was the one who pleaded to be saved. He coldly declares that his wish shall be granted. He promises to slaughter every single monster before the guard can even bleed out. The dying man can only gasp in disbelief and wonders if this guy is really planning to fight the entire army by himself. Our hero just walks past him without saying another word and acts like the question is not even worth answering. That is absolute peak GigaChad behavior. He leaps into the center of the monster horde and roars that he will tear them all to pieces. He unleashes a flurry of blinding red sword slashes and cuts down multiple beasts simultaneously in a beautiful display of swordplay. He finishes the combo with a massive vertical slash that splits the battlefield wide open. Two surviving merchant guards watch from behind a tree and are completely paralyzed with awe and fear. They sweat bullets as they witness his terrifying combat power and whisper to each other, wondering if this savior is actually a monster in human disguise. He stands victoriously in the center of the bloody battlefield, surrounded by dozens of slain beasts as dark cursed energy radiates from his body. Far away, a beautiful female knight with long red hair and shining white armor stops in her tracks as she senses an incredibly dense wave of dark energy. She turns to her companion, who is a mysterious archmage, and firmly states that they must change their plans and head toward the Tatara trading post immediately at sunrise. She narrows her glowing green eyes and warns him that she can feel a highly concentrated and dangerously powerful demonic energy coming from that exact direction. Things are definitely about to get complicated for our hero. As the battle dust clears, our hero sees his quest progress update on the HUD. It looks like he managed to keep 30 out of 52 survivors alive through that absolute war zone. He complains to himself about the horrific taste of monster blood in his mouth and curses the game developers for being so ridiculously obsessed with hyperrealism. Meanwhile, a nearby guard weakly stammers out a grateful thank you. Before the guard can even finish his sentence, he suddenly points at his comrade and screams in utter terror that it is demonic corruption. Our hero turns around and instantly locks his gaze onto the affected survivor. A helpful system tooltip informs him that individuals attacked by demonic forces have a high probability of succumbing to demonic corruption. This mechanic is starting to look extremely dangerous. The tooltip continues and warns that as the corruption level rises, the victim will suffer massive status ailments and eventually turn into a full-fledged demon. The poor guards panic and realize they only have standard sedatives left. Our hero stands there in complete silence and realizes he completely forgot that this core game mechanic even existed. He recalls that in the original game, every single tick of damage from a demon had a random chance to spike your overall corruption gauge. But since his custom demonic knight class has a permanent pass and is completely immune to the mechanic, it never even crossed his mind. He literally has a demon living in his arm already. He opens up his inventory interface to find a solution and figures that since the ultimate quest rewards probably scale with the survivor count, it is worth burning through his consumable stash. He pulls out a glowing green potion and calmly hands it over to the bewildered guard while telling him to accept these items. The guard gasps in awe as he inspects the item and realizes it is a legendary demonic energy antidote capable of purifying corruption and bringing instant peace to the soul. Our hero casually tosses them a bunch of bandages and sedatives as well and tells them to consume everything immediately to stabilize the wounded. The guard immediately shouts for the others to gather everyone who is injured. He is completely amazed that this passing stranger just handed over so many precious cures. Our hero realized his starting inventory was stuffed with these items for this exact event. He watches the survivors work and wonders if there is another hidden event trigger because the total survivor count seems completely locked in at 27. Suddenly, the heavy thumping of horse hooves echoes through the dark woods, causing him to turn his head in curiosity. A massive group of knights comes riding in at full speed, and the relieved guards cheer that their actual reinforcements have finally arrived. Right as they pull up, a flashing notification pops up to confirm that his rescue quest is officially complete. But his happy moment is instantly ruined when a brand new objective pops up and demands that he personally recover 25 bodies and gather all their lost items. He is absolutely speechless that he has to do chores now. Huh, sound effect. He grumbles under his breath and wonders why a legendary Dark Knight has to do the absolute grunt work of post-battle cleanup. He sighs and thinks that picking up messy corpses is completely going to ruin his cool and brooding aesthetic, but he does not really have a choice. He decides to find a nice tree to lean against in the dark forest and watches the other mercenaries begin the work. He notices that the quest progress bar actually fills up even if the NPCs do all the physical lifting. He happily decides to just sit back and watch them do the work. The hardworking mercenaries glare at him and mutter about how arrogant he is for just standing there with his arms crossed while they slave away in the mud. Our hero just smirks under his eye patch and is completely unbothered by their angry whispering. He laughs to himself and thinks that slacking off while standard NPCs do all the work is one of the greatest pleasures of modern gaming. Lowering tone. While he relaxes, he listens to the nearby workers talk about how they have never seen such a brutal raid in the Western Territories before. He wonders if this highly specific background dialogue is actual foreshadowing for a future arc. Suddenly, one of the searchers yells out that they are missing several bodies from the battlefield and wonders where a dead corpse could have possibly gone. The workers decide it is best to retreat to the safety of the city walls and complain that they pay so much in taxes only to be left defenseless against demon hordes. Our hero immediately puts the clues together and realizes that missing corpses in a dark fantasy game always points to evil cultists or necromancers. He's excited for the upcoming boss fight. The lead guard shouts that the cleanup is finally complete, and right on cue, his quest window flashes to confirm everything has been recovered. Our hero turns around and coolly commands the group to head back and leads the weary caravan out of the dark woods. Back at the guild headquarters, the old master looks over the report and begrudgingly admits that they all fought incredibly well. Our hero steps forward and demands that the old-timer ensures he is compensated fairly for his dangerous efforts. The guildmaster roars back and is offended that our hero would think he is cheap enough to scam an adventurer out of his hard-earned coins. He tells him to wait right there. He slams his wooden cane heavily onto the floor and announces that there is one more thing they need to discuss. He narrows his eyes and states that there is another highly sensitive commission he wants to personally entrust to him. Our hero stays in character and tells him to simply speak his piece. The assistant looks completely shocked that the boss is handing out another quest so quickly. The old man explains that it is another crucial demon subjugation mission that needs immediate attention. Isran nervously interrupts and points out that this specific zone was already assigned to another party of veteran adventurers. The guildmaster loses his temper and yells that he is officially reassigning the quest because they have not heard a single word from that group since they left. He insists that he will not waste any more precious time waiting around, and declares that after witnessing our hero skills, he is the only one fit for the job. Our hero is deeply impressed and thinks that despite his terrible attitude, the guildmaster is actually a very good guy who cares about his workers. He asks if his target is simply to wipe out the demons in the northwest forest. The clerk nods and agrees to broker the contract immediately, while the assistant nervously worries about the cancellation fees for the previous party. The old guildmaster scoffs and shouts that those weaklings got fired because they lacked raw talent, completely ignoring the bureaucratic rules. The assistant turns to our hero and asks if he is officially accepting this dangerous new commission. He offers to escort our hero to a local inn so he can get some proper rest, and promises to hammer out the contract details on the way. The screen fades to black and transitions to the following morning under a beautiful, clear blue sky. A new quest prompt flashes as our hero boards a grand carriage heading directly toward the cursed northwest forest. He sits inside the moving carriage and stares blankly out the window as the rough wooden wheels clatter against the road. He begins to groan in pain and realizes that the game actually simulates the physical sensation of having your legs cramp up from a long trip. He has a complete mental breakdown and screams about a 10-hour carriage ride having zero fast travel features. He is officially calling this game absolute garbage. He questions why he is putting himself through so much physical torture just to roleplay an edgelord, but seeing the young errand boy next to him staring in absolute awe makes him feel a little bit better. He tells himself to just endure the pain because a massive payout is waiting for him once this long trip is over. Upon arriving, the local merchant guild representative meets him at the inn and begs him to hunt down the monster as quickly as possible. Our hero looks him dead in the eye and coldly demands to know the exact details of the bounty. The merchant looks completely shocked as he reveals the base quest reward is a massive 700,000 gil. Our hero just stands there silently, but his internal gamer brain is absolutely screaming in shock at the insane amount of money. Seeing his cold silence, the panicked merchant quickly offers to throw in an additional 200,000 on top if he successfully eliminates the target. A negotiation prompt suddenly pops up, and our hero is utterly confused because he has not put a single skill point into his negotiation stats. While he tries to figure out if this is a scripted event, the sweating merchant takes his silence as a refusal and desperately bumps the bonus up to 300,000. Our hero is absolutely thrilled and thanks his lucky stars that his edgy silence somehow scammed the merchant out of a massive bonus. He is officially a master of business. He declares that he will depart immediately, and the merchant tries to stop him and suggests he should at least take a day to rest first. Our hero turns around dramatically and states that he will not waste a single second resting while demonic monsters still draw breath. The dedication to the character is real. The carriage speeds away from the inn and races toward the dark tree line as the sun begins to set. He happily imagines buying a massive castle with all his newfound wealth and laughs about how perfectly simulated the economy in this game is. Suddenly, the young errand boy sitting across from him timidly speaks up and asks if he is a real adventurer. He hits him with a cold response and states that he is not. In his mind, he thinks his dark character is way too cool to be called a simple adventurer. The young boy looks a bit confused, and our hero immediately starts sweating. He wonders if he was acting a bit too edgy to a literal kid. He quickly softens his tone and asks the boy if he has a question he wants to ask him. The cute kid asks if he has ever seen the ocean before. Our hero is totally melted by how adorable the NPC animations are. He explains that he has and describes the ocean as being as piercingly blue as the boy eyes, with waves that curl much like his hair. That is surprisingly poetic. The young boy is completely amazed by the description, and his eyes sparkle with absolute joy. The carriage ride remains incredibly peaceful as they finally arrive at the edge of the quiet northwest forest. But as they step into the dark woods, the peaceful atmosphere is instantly shattered by the sound of clashing steel. A mysterious dark-haired man wields a glowing sword and yells about punishing those who betray the divine. Suddenly, the beautiful red-haired female knight in white armor leaps into the fray and roars that she will purge the demons in the name of the Almighty. The tutorial is officially over, and things are about to get incredibly wild. Our hero steps deep into the shadowy undergrowth of the forest, and the crimson light filtering through the trees creates a highly tense atmosphere. He activates his specialized sensing ability, and a sharp gleam appears in his eye as the magic takes hold. The system confirms that his search skill has been successfully activated, which allows him to easily perceive the exact direction of any hostile presence nearby. He smiles to himself and thinks that while searching this massive woodland on foot would have been a total nightmare, having a high-tier tracking skill makes it an absolute breeze. Suddenly, a bright red system alert flashes in front of his face to warn him that a highly hostile target has just entered a 10-meter radius. Before he can even look up, a booming voice echoes from above and curses him as a filthy traitor who dares to betray God. A striking red-haired female knight in gleaming silver armor drops down from the sky and unleashes a devastating overhead strike. Damage. She grips her heavy mace with pure, unbridled fury and is determined to crush him into the dirt where he stands. She roars that she will strike him down and throws the entire weight of her body into a massive sweeping swing. Our hero barely manages to block the heavy attack with his blade, but the sheer impact sends a painful shockwave straight up his arms. He immediately worries about his weapon durability taking a massive hit. She clicks her tongue in annoyance as he parries her follow-up attack, and sparks fly wildly as their weapons grind together. She gracefully leaps back to create some distance while our hero stands his ground, highly confused by her sudden mention of the order. She glares at him with intense, glowing green eyes and firmly repeats her holy vow to strike him down. He just stares at her with a blank and confused look on his face. He has absolutely no idea why she is so incredibly angry at him. He asks why a holy priest is attacking him, and states that the order he remembers is supposed to practice charity and mercy. He questions if they have turned into common thugs. The night glows with a blinding divine light and screams in fury about how a pathetic demonic beast dares to lecture her on violence. The entire background goes dark as the heavy words identifying him as a mere demon echo through his mind in a tragic loop. He points a finger at his own chest in complete shock and realizes that this fanatic is actually mistaking him for a literal monster. What the heck, bro? He scratches his head in confusion and wonders why a priest NPC is mistaking him for a demon. He checks his interface, but no event or quest pop-up is appearing to explain the sudden attack. He looks down at his character Dark Arm, which is completely possessed by cursed demonic energy. He realizes he does not have any demonic items in his bag, which leaves him completely baffled. Then a massive wave of realization hits him like a freight train. Instead of panicking, he gets super excited and realizes that this is a goldmine opportunity for a hardcore roleplayer. The lore of his gauntlet states that he wears it to hide his cursed and demon-infested arm, while constantly struggling with the painful question of whether he is still human. He instantly locks into his peak edgelord persona and strikes a highly dramatic pose as he proudly tells her to never call him a demon. Tada HO2. He draws his sword and proudly recites his signature edgy battle cry to dedicate the upcoming victory directly to the heavens. The knight is completely disgusted by his speech and calls him a pathetic turncoat who fell to darkness yet still dares to act like a noble knight. She charges forward with her mace raised high and tells him to face his final judgment in quiet peace. Our hero thinks to himself that playing knight is actually quite accurate, since his character was never formally knighted in the official lore. With a dark grin, he decides that since he is a cursed rogue, he has absolutely no intention of fighting a clean or honorable duel. He unleashes a massive burst of dark purple combat energy and triggers his powerful shieldbreaker ability directly in her face. BAD. Done. Done. A massive explosion of cursed energy ripples across the battlefield and slams directly into her heavy shield. Our hero casually steps back and taunts her by saying that cowering behind that massive shield makes her look like a helpless baby turtle. The furious knight promises to sever his head as an offering to those who suffered under demon attacks as a strange white light begins to gather around her. She raises her heavy mace to the sky and roars that God is by her side as a brilliant white energy wraps around her entire body. Our hero is forced to cover his eyes from the blinding divine radiance and groans in annoyance. He sighs in defeat as he analyzes her stats and realizes she just activated a massive full-body attack and defense buff. He feels an intense wave of jealousy. He complains to himself that the buff is way too strong compared to the original game version, though he figures the high-class matchup multiplier is probably still the same. She charges forward with her buff active and unleashes a relentless barrage of heavy shield bashes and mace swings. He parries her strikes and notes that priest class attacks are far too slow to land a direct hit, which means she is relying entirely on the radiant light of her holy buff to wear him down. Deciding to fight back, he unleashes an incredibly fast series of purple slashes and is confident that his raw attack speed is vastly superior. Unfortunately, every single one of his blinding strikes clangs uselessly against her massive, impenetrable shield. He groans in frustration and realizes that dealing damage through that heavy armor is going to be incredibly difficult. He delivers a powerful and direct kick to her shield and hopes to find a gap or force her to lose her footing. The knight stands her ground and demands that if he has any honor left before God, he should step forward and face her like a true warrior. He just smirks and completely ignores her noble demands as he plans his next move. Using his superior speed, he blitzes right past her defense and laughs that he is going to hit her from behind instead. She gasps in panic as she struggles to turn her heavy armor around in time to block his strike. He notes that the heady gear of the priest class makes their turn speed incredibly slow. He leaps high into the air, and the bright moonlight silhouettes his blade as he prepares a devastating drop attack. He roars that the fight is officially over and swings his sword down with everything he has. His blade collides with her shield with a deafening metallic crash that splits the very ground beneath them. The knight grits her teeth in agony and her arms tremble as she struggles to hold back the immense pressure of his attack. A system tooltip reminds us that while the priest class is incredibly durable, the demon knight holds a massive advantage in overall attack speed. He unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes and tells her to pay the price for her reckless tongue. In a desperate move, she begins chanting a holy flame spell and summons a massive wall of fire all around them. A massive pillar of fire erupts directly under our hero and catches him completely off guard. He is shocked that a defense-oriented priest class is using a powerful offensive mage spell. Through the thick smoke and bright embers, a mysterious figure wrapped in a dark purple robe slowly steps onto the battlefield. The newcomer is a beautiful lioness archmage who carries a glowing magical staff and offers her assistance in the hunt. The red-haired knight smiles with immense relief and happily welcomes her powerful companion to the fight. Our hero stands there with sweat dripping down his face and is completely dumbfounded by the sudden appearance of two major high-level classes. The system confirms that his opponents are an Inquisitor and an Archmage, which are both highly prestigious third-class advancements in the game. He realizes he is up against an incredibly dangerous high-level combination of a self-healing tank and the heavy-range DPS class. He looks down at his basic sword and cries tears of gaming despair as he realizes he is just a low-level newbie who literally just finished the starting tutorial. Our hero stands completely frozen under the dark night sky and realizes he is trapped directly between a high-level holy tank and a powerful ranged DPS archmage. He silently panics and sweats bullets as he wonders why the game developers would choose to completely screw over a brand new player this early in the game. He feels like a fragile little egg trying to smash its way through a solid brick wall and desperately wonders if there is any possible way to survive this lopsided encounter. He complains that the game does not even have a basic pain toggle feature, which means he is about to feel every single hit of being brutally beaten to death by these two high-level bosses. His eyes go wide with pure shock as he remembers the most terrifying part of virtual reality games, the brutal and soul-crushing death penalty. He slowly grips his sword hilt and grits his teeth as he realizes the game is basically forcing him to accept his tragic demise. But then, his gamer brain starts analyzing the system rules and wonders if dying during the tutorial is actually a secret trick to unlock all the locked quality of life interface features. A giant light bulb suddenly goes off over his head, and he bursts out laughing, fully ready to embrace death if it means experiencing everything this insanely realistic game has to offer. He closes his eyes and takes a deep breath and resolves that, since he is going to die anyway, there is absolutely no reason for him to act like a chicken. He decides that if he is going down, he is going to go out on his own terms by delivering the absolute edgiest lines possible and dying in pure dramatic style. He looks directly at the powerful beast girl and mocks her, saying that calling her an archmage is a joke, since she spends her time threatening innocent travelers with a reckless kid. The red-haired knight screams in fury and calls him a sickening hypocrite for trying to act innocent when he is clearly a cursed demon possessor. Suddenly, a bright red system alert flashes in front of his face and warns him that another highly hostile entity has just entered the area. He frowns and wonders if the game is seriously throwing even more high-level reinforcements at him just to make sure he is completely dead. But instead of a human, a massive, terrifying, shadowy snake demon emerges from the dark woods and its glowing yellow eyes lock onto them. The lioness archmage stops in her tracks, and her face goes completely pale as she gasps out the name of the legendary beast Medusa. Our hero is highly offended that she stole his dramatic line. The knight immediately points her heavy mace at him and yells that his excuses about being innocent were nothing but a lie to stall for time while summoning his demonic ally. Our hero just scoffs at the ridiculous accusation and tells her that the blinding divine light must have completely ruined her vision. He glares at the massive serpent and loudly promises to tear its stupid mouth apart right after he finishes mincing the demon itself. A system tooltip pops up to confirm that Medusa is a boss monster, made up of hundreds of normal snakes coiled around a single red core snake. He is thrilled to realize this is a scripted story event. He is absolutely ecstatic and cheers that the game developers are not complete psychopaths after all. He knew they would not just slaughter players without a proper and epic escape route. He flashes a wild, bloodthirsty grin and declares that he will personally grant the giant beast a swift and brutal death. The two female knights quickly retreat to a safe distance, assuming that our hero is simply trying to cover up his partnership with the monster. The giant serpent lunges forward with a heavy strike, but our hero easily sidesteps the attack. He remembers that in the original game, players had to grind through the coils to find the main body. He decides that method is far too slow for his fast-paced gaming mentality. Looking at the realistic render, he figures the location of the main core snake is incredibly obvious. He blitzes forward with lightning speed and slices through the outer coils of the massive beast with a single powerful sweep. A massive spray of black blood covers the forest floor as he ruthlessly carves his way deeper into the monster main body. He plunges his hand directly into the center of the serpent chest and targets the exact spot where its vital heart should be. He spots a tiny, glowing red snake nested deep inside the fleshy core and triumphantly shouts that he found the jackpot. He drops his sword onto the grass and realizes that trying to use a large blade in such tight quarters will only make him miss his target. He thrusts his heavily armored gauntlet straight into the fleshy chest cavity with a wet, heavy squish. He wraps his fingers tightly around the squirming red core and pulls it completely out of the giant monster. He crushes the red snake in his powerful grip and instantly causes the entire massive body of the Medusa to collapse into lifeless pieces. He is highly pleased with how incredibly cool that move looked. He stands victoriously in the center of the bloody battlefield, completely drenched in monster blood as his dark aura flares up. He decides it is time to take his role-playing to the next level. Epic choir suspense. He casually tosses the remaining pieces of the crushed core onto the grass and acts completely unbothered by the violence. He heavily stomps his leather boot directly onto the snake's severed head and completely crushes it into the dirt. He grinds the remains beneath his heel and lets the squelching sound echo through the quiet forest. He slowly turns his head toward the two shocked knights who are watching his brutal display in absolute silence. He lifts his bloody sword and mockingly asks if even narrow-minded religious fanatics have enough common sense to stay out of a real warrior way. He commends them for not rushing forward to their deaths by interfering in a battle they clearly had no business being in. He narrows his eyes with a terrifying glare and asks if he should rip their mouths wide open as a proper reward for their insolence. Suddenly, the Beast Girl Archmage steps forward and bows deeply to apologize for her partner's reckless attack and pleads for a chance to explain the misunderstanding. She turns to the shocked knight and firmly explains that this man is not a demon contractor because demons would never fight their own kind. The red-haired knight is completely stunned and stammers that such a thing should be completely impossible according to her holy teachings. The Archmage explains that it is natural she does not know, since beings who can suppress a demon are incredibly rare and only ever mentioned in high-tier theoretical studies. Our hero is secretly eating metaphorical popcorn in his head and absolutely loving the fact that they are spending so much time hyping up his character's legendary backstory. The Archmage continues and explains that normal hosts completely lose their minds and turn into mindless zombies while this young man has successfully subjugated the demon to wield its dark power. The knight sweat drops in disbelief and insists that suppressing a powerful demon is completely impossible through simple human willpower alone without holy divine assistance. The wise old Archmage simply replies that nothing is truly impossible and that limits are only created by their own narrow perceptions. Our hero slowly walks back into the moonlight and his bloody face looks incredibly imposing. He coldly asks if they are finally finished talking about him like he is some kind of rare zoo animal right in front of his face. Internally, he is completely offended by them calling him a potential zombie, but he decides this is the perfect chance to show off his character's cool, dramatic dialogue. The Archmage admits their grave mistake and offers to grant him any reward or desire that is within her vast magical power. He worries that she is just going to offer him some cheap beginner coins. He grinds his teeth and asks if they would actually cut off their own tongues if he demanded it as proper compensation. He coldly tells them that if they cannot even do something that simple, they can shove their pathetic apologies back where they came from. He mutters that he would love to hang their jaws at the entrance of the village, but doing so would make him no better than the very demon beasts he hunts. He turns his back on them and commands them to simply get lost and walks away with absolute brooding confidence. Inside his mind, he is doing a happy little victory dance because the level of intense roleplay banter he just pulled off was absolutely legendary. He walks back toward the dead Medusa and suddenly realizes that in his excitement, he almost forgot to loot the rare boss materials. He bends down and carefully picks up the severed bloody red snake core from the grass. Suddenly, he hears footsteps behind him and quickly tenses up, wondering if they are going to start another fight over him, taking the monster remains. But instead of attacking, the red-haired knight approaches him with a highly serious look. He silently begs her not to ruin his quest completion. She looks him dead in the eye, and her voice is soft as she asks him to please hear her out as well. He stares back in silence as a heavy, dark aura surrounds them, and realizes that the game is smoothly transitioning him directly into the next major questline. The red-haired Inquisitor unexpectedly drops her defensive stance and offers a sincere, deep apology. It looks like she genuinely regrets jumping to conclusions earlier. Our hero is caught completely off guard by her sudden humility. Normally, elite young knights in these games double down on their pride instead of admitting they made a mistake. He expects some kind of typical teenage tantrum about justice, but she remains entirely focused on righting her wrong. Her earnestness is actually a bit refreshing. He sighs and tells her it is fine, and chalks it up to a reasonable misunderstanding given the circumstances. Even though she is just a programmed NPC, he cannot help but feel a little bad for making her feel so guilty. She insists on offering whatever compensation she can provide, and is completely determined to make things right. Our hero starts wondering if this is a scripted companion recruitment event. He quickly weighs his options and wonders if having a dedicated healer and tank around is worth the trouble. But his hardcore roleplayer brain instantly rejects the idea of partying up. Deciding to stick strictly to his lonely edgelord concept, he coldly turns his back on her. He tells her he has absolutely no need for her hypocrisy and tries to keep up his cool aura. The knight desperately tries to explain herself, but her companion steps in to calm her down. The archmage reminds her that they have far more pressing matters to attend to. She notes that they have already wasted enough time failing to slay the demon itself. Since the purification is complete, they need to report back to the guild immediately. The red-haired inquisitor looks down in silent defeat and begrudgingly agrees that they need to leave. They turn and head back down the forest path and leave our hero to wander off on his own. He marches ahead into the dark woods and is completely satisfied with how cool his dramatic rejection was. But after a few minutes of walking, he hears the distinct sound of quiet footsteps following closely behind him. He glances over his shoulder in utter annoyance and realizes the two female knights are still right on his tail. He opens up his glowing virtual map and takes a straight path back to the trading post. He starts sweating and wonders if the NPCs can somehow see his map too. He listens to them casually chatting about their purification duties and feels highly irritated by their presence. He silently begs them to just go their own way and stop bothering him. Deciding to test the waters and see if there is a hidden story event triggering, he stops and tells them to get lost. He glares at them coldly and asks if his previous words meant absolutely nothing to them. The archmage quickly apologizes and explains that they had absolutely no intention of offending him. She conjures a glowing navigation spell and reveals that they are simply following their own pathing system. It turns out they just happen to share the exact same destination. Our hero stands there in complete soul-crushing embarrassment as his massive ego instantly pops. It turns out they were not following him at all. They just have their own in-game GPS. Feeling incredibly stupid for making such a big deal out of it, he quickly walks away to escape the awkward silence. The red-haired knight calls out to him and warns him that traveling through the forest alone at night is incredibly dangerous. He retorts that the forest is only dangerous for weaklings like them and tells her to stop forcing her standards onto him. He internally begs the system to just let him enjoy his edgy roleplay in peace. She watches him disappear into the shadows, and her face is filled with genuine worry for his safety. She turns to the archmage and asks if it is really okay to just let him wander off alone. She worries that since he is already so strong, it would be an absolute disaster if he ever succumbed to the demon sealed inside him. The wise archmage agrees that hope and reality are often very different in this dark world. She reveals that she has already placed a stealth tracking spell on him, which allows them to keep tabs on his condition from a distance. Since they are heading to the same town anyway, they decide it is best to quietly observe him over time to ensure he does not lose control. The dark night sky is illuminated by a giant pale moon as crows flutter through the spooky forest canopy. We transition back to the peaceful, glowing streets of the Tatara trading post deep into the night. Our hero finally makes his way back to the quiet adventurer guild, and his boots click against the wooden floorboards. The door creaks open, and a sweeping clerk starts to apologize that it is far too late to accept new quests. But she instantly gasps in pure horror as she looks up and sees who just walked through the door. She stammers out his name and is completely terrified by his sudden and incredibly bloody appearance. He casually tosses a heavy dripping bag onto the wooden counter and coldly commands her to verify the contents. The clerk panics and quickly drops her broom and eagerly nods to process his request as fast as possible. She carefully opens the bag and is completely shocked to find the severed carcass of a massive serpent. Her eyes go wide with pure disbelief as she realizes what this means. She screams in shock and realizes he successfully traveled all the way to the northeast forest and slayed a legendary Medusa in just 2 days. Meanwhile, our hero is internally crying tears of absolute agony. He recalls turning his back on those 2 potential companions last night and confidently walking away to maintain his cool persona. But then a brutal and harsh reality hit him. It had taken a full 8 hours by carriage just to get there. He kept trying to convince himself that since this is a video game, there is no way the developers would actually make him walk the entire way back. He watches the sunset, then the night sky, and then the sunrise. His hope slowly drains away with every single step. It turns out this game is literally a brutal, hyper-realistic walking simulator. He ended up traveling on foot for an entire day. He spent the entire night dodging aggressive bugs and dangerous wildlife and was unable to even rest. He is officially calling this the most beautifully crafted trash game in existence. He almost cried tears of genuine joy when the Tatara Trading Post system notification finally popped up on his screen. Back in the present, the clerk carefully inspects the monster core and confirms that the subjugation was indeed a massive success. She explains that once the sun rises, they will fully process his payout and officially mark the quest as complete. The official quest completion banner pops up, but our hero is feeling so dizzy and weak in the knees that he can barely stand. He wonders if he is just getting too old to handle gaming all-nighters. The kind clerk notices his exhaustion and warmly recommends a nearby inn where he can get some proper rest. Just then, the enthusiastic young errand boy runs into the room and is completely shocked to see the demon knight has returned so quickly. The boy happily volunteers to guide him directly to the inn and keeps a safe but excited distance. As they walk, the kid eagerly asks what kind of terrifying demon he fought and if it was super strong. Our hero coldly replies that demons are not a topic for amusement. The poor kid instantly shrinks back in pure terror, and our hero feels an intense wave of guilt. He silently curses himself for being a pathetic adult who keeps accidentally bullying a literal child NPC. He resolves to give the helpful kid a massive and generous tip as soon as they safely arrive at the inn to make up for it. He finally collapses onto the soft bed and stares blankly at the ceiling and seriously questions if he should just rage quit this painful game. Suddenly, a bright red system alert flashes in front of his face to warn him that his character fatigue level has reached a maximum of 100%. He complains about how realistic the physical toll feels. A prompt pops up offering to let him sleep for 6 hours. He decides to take a quick nap before making any final decisions about quitting. He selects the confirm option as the screen begins to dim. The room goes completely quiet and is illuminated only by the faint, cool moonlight spilling through the window. The heavy wooden door to his room is silently left closed to seal him inside. Suddenly, the door slowly creaks open and a dark, ominous shadow creeps into the room. The mysterious intruder slowly draws a sharp, cold dagger and his grip tightens around the hilt. The assassin leaps forward with his blade raised high and is determined to plunge it straight into our sleeping hero chest. This is an absolute emergency. Just as our hero drifts off into a deep and much-needed slumber, a flashing crimson alert rudely interrupts his peaceful dreams. It warns him that a highly hostile target has breached his immediate perimeter. Alert! Before he can even open his eyes, a heavy weapon comes swinging down directly toward his skull. He barely manages to raise his blade in time, and the metallic impact sends sparks flying in the dark. The cloaked assailant grits his teeth and is clearly frustrated that his stealthy assassination attempt failed so miserably. Our sleeping hero is even more furious and shouts that he should be the one complaining about this rude awakening. He absolutely despises his passive enemy detection skill right now. What is even the point of a 10-meter warning radius if it only triggers when the blade is literally centimeters from his face? The burglar stumbles backward in pure shock and is completely overwhelmed by the absurd physical power of a guy who is just fast asleep. Our hero glares at him from the bed and his dark aura slowly flares up. Deciding to teach this uninvited guest a proper lesson, he leaps out of bed and unleashes a swift, sweeping counterstrike. Terrified by the sheer speed of the attack, the burglar immediately drops his spiked club and begs for mercy, claiming he was only after the money. Our hero points his blade directly at his throat and is completely unimpressed. Keeping his cool facade locked in, he coldly orders the thief to drop all weapons and put his hands on his head. Internally, though, he's absolutely cringing at himself for delivering such cliché generic cop lines. The heavy spiked club clatters loudly against the wooden floorboards as the intruder trembles in fear. He stands tall over the cowering thief and mockingly asks if coin pouches just magically fall out of people heads when you smash them open. The burglar desperately whines and pleads for his life to be spared, but the desperate thief was only acting and suddenly pulls out a hidden dagger to leap forward with a wild, crazed scream. He really thought he could pull a fast one on a seasoned gamer. Our hero does not even blink and effortlessly dodges the sloppy lunge with a seamless, blindingly fast sidestep. He brings the heavy hilt of his sword straight down onto the thief head with a sickening crack and instantly knocks the wind out of him. The burglar face plants onto the mattress and is completely neutralized. Our hero laughs coldly and asks if he honestly thought a cheap toy dagger could actually pierce his armor. He grabs the unconscious thief by the hair and drags him off the bed like a bag of garbage. He mutters that while he respects the game, immersive world getting robbed while suffering from maximum fatigue is pushing his patience. He opens the door and drags the limp body into the quiet hallway and wonders if this is a scripted random event or just a very poorly designed welcome committee. He casually marches down the corridor and the heavy footsteps echo through the dark building as he brings the intruder straight to the lobby. The poor innkeeper turns around and instantly drops her broom. Her eyes widen in absolute horror at the terrifying sight, crowd-shocked. Drenched in sweat and looking like a literal demon under the dim light, he apologizes for losing his temper and simply requests to finally get some sleep. The terrified woman completely ignores his words and lets out a blood-curdling scream that probably woke up the entire neighborhood. Scream. She starts frantically screaming about a brutal murder which forces our hero to judge her eyesight. The thief is literally lying right there, groaning in pain, so how on earth does he look dead to her? Before he can even explain, his system interface flashes with another red warning alert. It seems yet another hostile target has entered his immediate radius. Right on cue, the red-haired Inquisitor bursts through the entrance and points her weapon at him, demanding to know if he just committed cold-blooded murder. She completely loses her mind and screams that a demon contractor who retains their consciousness is nothing but an absolute menace that must be purged on the spot. She lunges forward with a powerful strike, and her heavy mace crashes against his sword as the entire hallway shakes from the impact. Our hero blocks the heavy blow and feels a massive headache coming on. He complains that this annoying NPC always manages to show up at the most inconvenient and highly misunderstood times possible. The Inquisitor glares at him with intense glowing green eyes, and her divine energy flares up as she prepares her next strike. They stand locked in a tense standoff, and the atmosphere in the narrow hallway turns completely suffocating. But our hero quickly smiles and realizes that her fanatical nonsense is actually the perfect trigger to activate his ultimate edgy roleplay mode. He warns her that he promised to end her life if she dared to follow him. According to his custom character profile, there are 3 very specific buttons that will instantly make his Demon Knight snap and go full dark mode. And this overly enthusiastic holy priestess is basically slamming her fist down on all 3 of those buttons every single time they meet. Talk about a perfect match. She screams at him to remain silent and calls him a filthy parasite who stole a human body. Our hero just chuckles and is highly pleased that she is playing her role so beautifully. Her eyes glow with a feral yellow light as she charges forward with absolute reckless fury. Our hero's eyes grow cold and dark as he mockingly tells her that she is actively rushing straight into her own grave. He unleashes a massive wave of dark purple combat energy and coldly tells her to stand down before she gets caught up in a fight she cannot possibly win. He swings his heavy sword with blinding speed, and a crescent wave of cursed light cuts through the air. The sheer shockwave of the clash tears through the hallway, but right as he prepares to follow up, a sudden magical light appears. Glowing blue magical chains suddenly wrap tightly around his entire body and completely lock his limbs in place. He immediately recognizes this as the high-tier Archmage crowd control skill. Honestly, he is actually pretty impressed to see such a legendary PvP skill being used in a simple inn hallway. The Lioness Archmage steps forward and urgently calls for everyone to stop the fighting. Our hero just smirks and mockingly welcomes her to the party. He roars out his standard edgy dialogue and threatens to rip her tongue out for interfering. Internally, though, he knows the Bime skill wears off automatically, so he just has to pretend to struggle to keep up the immersion. The confused Inquisitor demands to know why the Archmage is stopping her and insists that they need to purge the demon immediately. Suddenly, with a deafening shatter, our hero flexes his muscles and completely obliterates the magical chains using raw brute strength alone. The priestess gasps in absolute paralyzing shock. She is unable to believe her eyes as the remnants of the high-tier magic scatter into dust. The poor innkeeper sobbed behind the counter, completely traumatized by the terrifying supernatural display happening right in front of her lobby. Even the highly experienced Archmage has sweat dripping down her face and is completely stunned by his terrifying physical power. With his sword covered in a dark burning purple flame, our hero stands victoriously and looks like an unstoppable final boss. Epic choir suspense. He steps forward and the floorboards groan under his weight as the 2 holy knights warily watch his every move. The Inquisitor stammers and is completely bewildered as to how a low-level adventurer could possibly break a master-tier binding spell so effortlessly. Our hero just stays silent and gives them a chilling, empty stare that sends shivers down their spines. But inside his head, he is absolutely laughing his head off at how broken the game balance is. He remembers that in the original game, Mage Binding was such an overpowered and game-breaking CC skill that players literally spammed the forums demanding it be nerfed. He guesses the devs finally listened. LOL sound effect. The Archmage steps between them and pleads for both of them to calm down so they can clear up what is clearly a massive misunderstanding. The priestess yells back and insists she saw him commit murder. The Archmage turns to her with a stern expression and asks her if her blind, holy rage has completely ruined her ability to perceive basic reality. She commands the Inquisitor to actually look closely at the surrounding environment instead of jumping to wild conclusions. Right on cue, the dead burglar slowly lifts his head from the floor and weakly groans to call our hero a literal monster. The Inquisitor jaw completely drops and her entire face turns bright red as she realizes she just made a fool of herself for the 2nd time in a row. She stammers in complete, soul-crushing embarrassment and whispers to herself, wondering how on earth the guy is still breathing after taking such a beating. She slowly looks up at our hero, and her face is completely covered in nervous sweat as she struggles to find words. The Archmage bows deeply and politely asks if he would be willing to explain the situation to them. She admits it is incredibly shameless to ask after attacking him, but they need to know the truth. Our hero decides to just clear things up so he can finally get some sleep. He looks at the growing crowd of curious inn guests and is highly annoyed by all the drama. He lightly nudges the thief and coldly commands him to stop showing everyone his rear end and start speaking the truth. The burglar panics and desperately begs for mercy. With a heavy sword pointed at his nose, the thief quickly confesses to everything and cries that he was only after our hero gold pouch and that it was entirely his fault. He explains that he saw our hero generously tip the young guide earlier, so he assumed he was a wealthy traveler loaded with cash. The Inquisitor is left completely speechless by the revelation. Our hero Chibi in herself is absolutely cheering and is glad that this exhausting misunderstanding is finally resolved. He can finally go back to sleep. He tells the innkeeper to pay much closer attention to her establishment security next time and declares that he will not stay another second in such a noisy place. The panicked woman tries to call him back, but he just ignores her. He walks out into the cool morning air and is glad that he spent his quest experience points to upgrade his inventory space. It made packing up his gear an absolute breeze. As he walks down the quiet street, a sudden weird thought hits him. He starts wondering why that priestess and archmage looked so incredibly familiar to him. Suddenly, the red-haired Inquisitor comes running out of the inn and calls for him to wait. He stops in his tracks and slowly turns his head over his shoulder to glare at her with a highly annoyed expression. She stands there panting and looks incredibly determined. Our hero stares back and realizes that since it was so dark during their previous encounters, he never actually got a proper look at their faces. He looks closely at her distinct red hair and bright green eyes as a massive wave of shock washes over him when his memory finally clicks. This is highly concerning. Our hero stares at the red-haired Inquisitor who just chased him all the way out of the inn with her expression, a mix of exhaustion and intense determination. He narrows his eyes and takes a much closer look at her features now that they are finally out of the dimly lit hallway. He notices her distinct bright red hair tied in a very specific braid and paired with incredibly vivid glowing green eyes. Wait, why is this character design so oddly familiar? A massive realization hits his gamer brain like a truck. This is not just some random NPC, she is literally the official priest-class cover character from the original game. Right on cue, the lioness archmage catches up with them and breathlessly warns the priestess that rushing out so recklessly into the dark street is incredibly dangerous. Our hero slowly shifts his gaze over to the archmage and realizes that she matches the game official lore designs as well. Sure enough, she is the spitting image of the towering white lion beastfolk mage class character. He is completely blown away that he ran into two major protagonist designs in the exact same starting zone. He finds this incredibly bizarre and remembers that other class characters never crossed paths in the original game since every class had its own separate storyline. He looks at the two of them standing side by side and wonders if the developers made teaming up with other classes mandatory in this virtual reality remake. His hardcore roleplayer brain instantly rejects the idea of joining a party, and he mutters that having companions around would completely ruin his lone wolf edgelord concept. To keep up his dramatic act and test the limits of the game freedom, he coldly asks her if she simply does not understand the meaning of shut up. He sneers and asks if her noble status as a priest makes her too proud to hear the warnings of a cursed demon contractor. The poor girl flinches and frantically stammers that she only wanted to apologize. She tightly shuts her eyes and her face scrunches up in intense emotional pain as she grits her teeth. Suddenly, she drops heavily to both knees right on the cold stone street and cries out that a simple verbal apology can never redeem the massive insult she inflicted upon him. She clutches her chest and loudly proclaims that if a standard apology is not enough to appease his anger, he is completely free to take her head as compensation. A dramatic silhouette of her kneeling before him paints an incredibly intense scene under the moonlight. They stand completely frozen in the empty street and the quiet wind blows dust past them as she awaits her judgment. Our hero is absolutely losing his mind inside and sweats bullets at this legendary display of teenage NPC drama. He is just a solo gamer who wanted a quick nap, not a public execution. He screams in his head and desperately questions why on earth her personality is so incredibly extreme. He just wanted to play solo and not be treated like some bloodthirsty villain. He looks over at the silent archmage standing nearby and silently demands to know who on earth raised this kid to be so dramatic. The lioness archmage looks incredibly awkward and uncomfortable and looks like she also wishes the ground would just swallow her whole. Our hero realizes he has to act fast to stop this madness, but if he breaks character now to comfort her, his entire legendary edgelord run will be completely ruined. He takes a deep breath and tries his best to think of a cool and in-character solution that does not involve actually decapitating a teenager. The Archmage grits her teeth and her expression turns deeply solemn as she makes a heavy decision. The screen shifts to the Archmage perspective, and her eyes widen as she looks at the terrifying, cursed aura radiating from our hero body. She steps forward and places herself directly between them and pleads for him to show the young priestess some mercy. She explains that the Inquisitor is still young and completely ignorant of the real world. She bows her head and asks him to punish her instead for failing to guide her partner. The shocked priestess looks up and cries out that the Archmage did nothing wrong and that she should be the one to take full responsibility. They literally start arguing over who gets to receive his wrath and completely embarrass themselves in the middle of the street. Our hero is just standing there and is utterly done with this nonsense. Realizing his cool rejection plan failed miserably, he accepts that he will just have to deal with this annoying situation himself. He sighs and thinks that while this NPC drama is incredibly awkward, it is also highly entertaining. He decides to fully roll with it and see where the story takes him. He slowly draws his glowing sword and states coldly that he already gave them ample opportunity to leave in peace. He steps toward the kneeling priestess, and his heavy leather boots click against the stone ground as he claims they chose this punishment themselves. The young priestess closes her eyes tightly and braces herself as a dark shadow falls over her. With a swift and blindingly fast swing, his blade cuts clean through the air. The Archmage winces and closes her eyes since she cannot bear to watch the brutal scene unfold. But instead of losing her head, the priestess opens her eyes to find her iconic braided ponytail falling to the ground. Our hero literally just gave her an aggressive mid-battle haircut. She looks down in complete disbelief and touches her newly shortened hair as her eyes go wide with confusion. Her severed braid drops onto the stone floor with a quiet thud. She stammers and is completely bewildered as to why he would choose to cut her hair instead of taking her life. She stares up at him, and her face is filled with absolute shock and confusion. Our hero casually sheathes his sword and turns his back on her before beginning to walk away into the cool night. Inside his mind, he is doing a total victory dance and is proud of his absolute genius roleplay move that successfully diffused the situation without breaking character. He remembers his character tragic prologue where his younger sister, who also used a mace, was brutally killed. He figures his edgy character would definitely feel a soft spot for her. The Archmage gently places a hand on the crying priestess' shoulder and lets out a long sigh of immense relief. He looks back one final time and tells her to watch her mouth and look at her hair. He notes that her braid was a classic death flag hairstyle in anime, so she should thank him for saving her life. He warns her that if she dares to cross him again, he will not be so generous next time. With that final cool line, he disappears into the shadows. The two female knights watch his departing back and are completely overwhelmed by his incredibly deep and tragic aura. Our hero Chibi inner self is absolutely giggling because he knows that even if he leaves them behind now, the main story will inevitably force them to cross paths again anyway. He waves a happy farewell in his mind and highly looks forward to whatever ridiculous story events these high-tier NPCs bring him next. Back in the street, the short-haired priestess quietly calls out to her companion and is still trying to process everything that just happened. She asks if the Archmage was truly correct about his body being slowly consumed by a powerful demon. The Archmage sadly confirms that it is highly likely. She notes that he must have endured unimaginable and soul-crushing suffering to survive such a horrific curse. The priestess tightly clenches her fist and her eyes shine with tears as she imagines the sheer weight of hatred he must carry inside his heart. The Archmage adds that if he was truly a mindless monster, he would have easily slaughtered them both without hesitation. She softly concludes that his actions tonight were nothing short of absolute and profound mercy. They visualize his tragic figure standing strong against a towering mass of demonic hatred with nothing but pure, unyielding mental fortitude. The priestess looks down at the stone ground and is deeply moved by his incredible strength of heart. She falls to her knees once more and realizes how incredibly immature and inexperienced she still is compared to a true warrior of justice. But then she suddenly snaps her head up and her eyes are wide with a brand new, incredibly passionate spark of inspiration. The Archmage smiles warmly and tells her that it is natural since she has not spent much time out in the real world yet. But the priestess completely ruins the emotional moment and leaps to her feet to scream that they absolutely need to recruit him into their party immediately. She holds her hands to her cheeks and her eyes sparkle with absolute adoration for her newfound idol. She has officially turned into a massive Demon Knight fangirl. The Archmage expression instantly dies and her face turns completely flat as she questions every single life choice that led to this embarrassing moment. She eventually just closes her eyes and smiles weakly and accepts that there is absolutely no stopping her partner once she gets like this. They stand together under the giant glowing full moon as their legendary journey officially begins. Meanwhile, a system prompt flashes on our hero interface to confirm that he still has approximately 2 days left before his full dive gaming session officially ends. Things are definitely about to get wild. Ting. The next morning rises over the lively Tatara trading post as the warm sunlight breaks through a beautiful, clear blue sky. Kids cheering. Our exhausted hero has managed to escape the chaotic scene of the previous night and checks into a completely different inn nearby to finally get some peace. He sits down in the bustling, warm dining hall and is surrounded by the cheerful chatter of local guests enjoying their breakfast. He aggressively slams his fork straight into a thick, juicy steak to satisfy his hunger and restore his depleted stamina. He chews happily and keeps his dark warrior expression locked in, even while enjoying his delicious meal. But his happy moment is instantly ruined as the familiar figures of the Inquisitor and Archmage quietly slide into the seats right in front of him. His inner chibi self is absolutely losing its mind and is secretly thrilled that his dramatic roleplay attracted such dedicated high-level stalkers. He is officially a master of player recruitment. Lowering tone. But on the outside, he hits them with a freezing cold glare and demands to know if they are completely deaf. He seriously contemplates flipping the table, but his polite soul refuses to disrespect a perfectly good breakfast. The Archmage clasps her hands together and desperately pleads with him to just hear them out first, while promising that this will not be a waste of his valuable time. Our hero does not even want to hear it and slides out of his seat to coldly state that their words are not even worth listening to. Oof. He turns his back on them and claims that just having their faces in his presence is already a massive inconvenience. But instead of getting angry, the young priestess listens with a nervous and starry-eyed blush on her face. She suddenly shouts at the top of her lungs and declares that she has come to learn from his legendary and unmatched magnanimity. Scream. The entire tavern goes completely silent as she stands there and blushes furiously after her public confession. Our hero is left completely frozen, and his entire brain executes a massive system crash as he tries to process what on earth she just said. Did the game AI just glitch out completely? He starts sweating profusely and nervously questions if his aggressive storyline rejections somehow broke the game's primary event triggers. The priestess bows deeply and explains that she was always taught to distance herself from stubbornness, yet she completely failed to practice what she preached. With an incredibly earnest voice, she notes that despite her constant insults and attacks, he consistently granted her mercy and forgiveness. She stammers that such a feat surely could not have been easy. She gazes up at him with blinding, pure admiration and claims she finally saw the true path she must walk, thanks to his noble example. Our hero heart takes a massive, devastating critical hit. He is completely defenseless against this level of pure, unadulterated cuteness. In his mind, a tiny, chibi version of the priestess is happily riding a train of pure passion straight into his otaku heart. He looks over his mental waifu checklist and realizes she checks every single box of being honest, socially awkward, clumsy, and deeply dedicated to justice. She is literally his ultimate favorite character type. He fondly recalls playing the original PC version of Legend of Heroes years ago, where the priest class design was indeed his absolute #1 favorite. He gets so incredibly soft that he wants to give her a massive thumbs up and tell her that everything is completely fine. His dark aura is completely melting away under her starry gaze, but he quickly bites his lip and clenches his jaw and desperately warns himself that he must resist and keep his edgy, brooding persona locked in at all costs. Seeing his sudden tense scowl, the poor priestess immediately panics and nervously wonders if she just said something incredibly rude again. He crosses his arms and hits her with his deepest voice to state that if her goal was to ruin his appetite, she made an interesting attempt, but his internal thoughts are literally screaming about how adorable she is. He maintains his cold, sharp glare and keeps his true feelings perfectly hidden behind his dark eye patch. The Archmage sighs and steps in to tell the priestess that trying to apologize to an edgelord like him is basically a form of suicide. She politely asks our hero to please hear them out. Our hero scoffs and coldly retorts that the only thing he has to share with them is the sharp edge of his blade, but the Archmage suddenly drops the name Satan. She glares at him and asks if he would still draw his sword even if it meant getting a chance to slay the king of demons himself. He stops in his tracks and his single visible eye widens in absolute shock at the mention of the game's ultimate final boss. He slowly turns around, and a suffocating dark purple aura of pure combat energy erupts all around him as he demands to know what she means. The two female knights swallow hard and are completely paralyzed by the terrifying and bloodthirsty intensity radiating from his body. They stand in absolute silence, and the entire tavern turns ice cold under his menacing gaze. They realize his cold eye holds a terrifying dark depth which convinces them that his hatred for demons is far deeper than anything they could possibly imagine. The system narrative notes that if they dare to lie or deceive him even a tiny bit, his dark blade will ruthlessly tear their limbs apart. But the brave young Inquisitor does not flinch, and her grip tightens around her mace. She glares back with absolute determination, and her green eyes shine with her holy vow to destroy evil at all costs. She looks him dead in the eye and is fully prepared to face his wrath if it means proving her absolute sincerity. But inside his head, our hero is absolutely cheering in pure gamer excitement and is thrilled that a major main scenario questline is already dropping for him. His chibi selves are dancing in a happy circle and celebrate that today, plot development is a complete god-tier win for his gameplay progress. A standard system lore card pops up and explains that the Inquisitor class acts as the legendary executors and judges who carry out the temple holy will. They are trained to be ruthless combatants who travel the world to cleanse demonic corruption with zero hesitation. The Archmage reveals that despite her young age, the priestess was forced to leave the safety of the temple for a very serious reason. The priestess explains that she received a direct holy revelation from God while praying. She was given a divine mandate declaring that she is the chosen one destined to vanquish Satan and bring peace to the land. But the revelation also warned her that she would lack the raw strength to achieve this task alone, and commanded her to gather powerful allies. So she teamed up with the Archmage and began traveling the world to search for legendary warriors who would stand by her side. The Archmage notes that this is exactly why she insisted on returning to find him, because she knows his unmatched strength is crucial for their quest. The priestess happily claps her hands while the embarrassed Archmage coughs to clear her throat and tries to regain her professional composure. Our hero is physically struggling to suppress a massive grin and is completely melted by how adorable the priestess' starry-eyed look is. She is like a precious little dumpling. But then a highly concerning thought hits his gamer brain. In the original game lore, that divine revelation was supposed to be given directly to the player and not an NPC. He wonders if this virtual reality remake completely shifted the primary storyline to revolve entirely around the priestess instead. The Archmage nervously raises her hands and formally asks if he would be willing to join their squad to vanquish Satan. Right on cue, a giant main scenario quest prompt flashes in front of his face titled, "A Step Towards Subjugating the Demon King." He stares at the glowing notification and realizes that accepting this quest will officially launch him into the game core storyline. The Archmage notes that his legendary reputation as a ruthless demon hunter makes him the absolute perfect candidate for their crusade. She looks at him with her glowing blue eye and points out that slaying Satan is the only way to truly save this corrupted land. Our hero looks down and thinks to himself that playing as a brooding, reluctant mercenary hired to protect the chosen hero is easily the coolest roleplay concept ever. The priestess eagerly offers to accompany him directly to the nearest holy temple if he needs any official proof of her divine mandate. She claims every high priest in the land will vouch for her status as the chosen savior. He stands there in silent contemplation with his hand resting on his sword hilt as he prepares to deliver his ultimate dramatic decision. Our hero narrows his eye and stares deeply at the two of them as he prepares to deliver his final dramatic terms. He warns them with a chilling voice that their claims about this holy mission had better be the absolute truth. Right on Q2, official companion system prompts flash on his screen to confirm that the Inquisitor and the Archmage have successfully joined his party. His primary quest log updates immediately and directs him to speak with his newly recruited Archmage companion to learn more about their destination. With their contracts officially signed, they waste no time boarding a grand carriage and riding out of the city gates. Local merchants and guards watch them depart and gossip about the legendary squad that just left the Tatara trading post. A bunch of nearby town NPCs try to trigger minor side quests and offer him various rewards, but our hero completely ignores them. He resolves to stay completely in character and keeps his focus strictly locked on his legendary main quest. But as they rumble down the bumpy dirt road, he quickly notices a highly concerning distraction. The young priestess is sitting directly across from him and staring at him with incredibly wide, sparkling eyes. She has been staring at him with that exact same intense expression ever since they agreed to travel together. He starts sweating under his eye patch and feels extremely uncomfortable. He racks his brain and tries to figure out what he did wrong. All he did was insult them and deliver incredibly edgy lines, so why is she looking at him like he is a hero? He decides to check his virtual interface and assumes that their overall affinity rating must have plummeted to absolute rock bottom. Ting. A helpful system tooltip informs him that companion behavior and command options scale directly with their hidden affinity level. He recalls openly telling her not to dare expect him to act like a friendly ally, which kept his cold, dark mercenary persona fully active. He wonders if early-game companion NPCs just have their default affinity values set ridiculously high to make the tutorial easier. In reality, the priestess' inner thoughts are completely filled with sparkles, and she happily thinks about how adorable and cute her new little kimchi dumpling leader is. She continues to gaze at his dark profile and is completely oblivious to his internal gamer panic. She admires how hopelessly passionate and incredibly strong he is and is completely melted by his cool, brooding aesthetic. The elderly Archmage watches her and smiles warmly like a proud, doting grandparent. Our hero is just sitting there utterly confused by this weird family dynamic. The old lion beastman lets out a soft chuckle and is highly amused by the young priestess' enthusiasm. He decides to break the silence and asks our hero if he has any specific questions about their destination or the divine revelation. Our hero stays in character and claims he has absolutely zero interest in their pathetic story or where they are heading. Internally, though, he is just too lazy to read the lore. He folds his arms and shrugs to coldly state that he does not care about their personal reasons or actions. He demands that if they have any sanity left, they should simply warn him about whatever enemies they expect to fight beforehand. The Archmage smirks and notes that his harsh words almost sound like he actually places a great deal of trust in their abilities. Our hero quickly scoffs and turns his head away, acting like he could not care less about their trivial matters. The heavy carriage rumbles deep into the lush green forest and heads toward their designated destination. The priestess eagerly explains that they are heading to a local temple that desperately requested their aid in purging a nearby demon outbreak. He quickly cuts her off and coldly repeats that he has absolutely no interest in her petty religious duties. He demands to know the exact species of the demons and their estimated numbers because he prioritizes practical combat data over lore. She nervously admits they only received a basic warning, which means they have to gather the actual details upon arriving at the temple. He scoffs in mock disgust and calls them utterly incompetent. Suddenly, a new subquest notification pops up on his screen titled Evil Lurking in the Village. He is surprised to see it is a standard side quest instead of the main campaign. He shrugs it off and figures that as long as he is earning solid experience points and making progress, the quest category does not really matter. But then he suddenly remembers the most critical detail. He only has about 1.5 days of real-world full dive time left before his gaming capsule shuts down. Looking out the window, he realizes this slow-moving carriage is going to waste a massive amount of his precious limited playtime. Deciding to make the most of the long trip, he closes his eyes and resolves to take a quick nap. He quietly drifts off and instructs his companions to simply wake him up as soon as they safely arrive at the temple. The young priestess smiles warmly at his sleeping face, and her heart is filled with gratitude. We transition into a brief flashback from the previous night where the priestess was quietly praying alone in her dark room. A polite knock echoes at her door, and the old archmage asks if he can come in to discuss their plans. The door creaks open and the wise old lion steps into the room with a highly serious look on his face. He sternly reminds her about the absolute gravity of offering her own head to a stranger and asks if she truly understands the consequences. He warns her that the fate of their entire world rides on her survival, which means she cannot afford to throw her life away so easily. The priestess looks down in silent shame and tearfully admits that she spoke impulsively and made a terrible mistake. But she desperately explains that her blind, holy fury almost drove her to slaughter an innocent heroic warrior who was actually saving the town. She recalls her sacred teachings and reminds herself that true justice must always be wielded with heavy gravity caution and deep humility. The old archmage slowly nods and recites the 9th commandment to comfort her troubled heart. She tightly clenches her trembling hands and weeps as she realizes how many innocent lives her foolish ignorance could have destroyed. She deeply questions her own worthiness and wonders how someone who failed to comprehend basic holy teachings can possibly be the chosen hero. She stares at her severed red braid on the floor and realizes his brutal haircut was actually a profound act of mercy that spared her soul from sin. Through his harsh lesson, she believes she has finally taken a massive step closer to understanding her true holy mission. She fondly envisions his dark, brooding silhouette under the moonlit sky, and her admiration turns into devotion. She literally concludes that this edgy, demonic, trash-talking mercenary is actually a secret holy apostle sent by God to guide her. The delusion is off the charts. Back in the present, she clasps her hands together and softly prays for God to grant their noble leader a peaceful, restorative sleep. The carriage continues its long, slow journey through the quiet forest trails as the sun begins to set. Our hero finally snaps awake 3 whole days later in-game, and his eyes are wide with a mix of shock and pure rage. He looks out the window at the new town and grumbles under his breath about how this game is a complete hyper-realistic garbage walking simulator. He has a total mental breakdown inside and screams about wasting hundreds of thousands of won on a virtual reality capsule just to sit in a carriage for hours. Gritting his teeth, he resolves to rush through this temple side quest as fast as physically possible with the little playtime he has left. The priestess cheerfully announces that they have finally arrived at the temple and invites him to lead the way inside. Our hero storms off with incredibly fast speed lines and leaves his bewildered companions eating his dust in the lobby. The panicked priestess quickly runs after him and breathlessly begs him to wait up. The poor old lion archmage is left dragging his feet in the background and complains about how incredibly exhausting it is to keep up with these energetic youngsters. He sighs heavily and adjusts his heavy magical staff as he slowly follows them up the grand stone stairs. Suddenly, a flock of spooky dark crows flutters wildly across the blue sky to set an incredibly ominous tone. They arrive at the grand, towering gates of the ancient holy temple. Our hero narrows his eye, and his warrior instincts instantly put him on high alert as he senses a dark, suffocating energy. The screen fades as a highly dramatic title card warns that a terrifying premonition is about to become a harsh reality. BADU, done. Suddenly, a panicked temple guard screams at the top of his lungs and warns everyone that a terrifying demon has just breached the inner sanctuary. This is an absolute emergency. The young priestess immediately steps forward and raises her hand as a brilliant golden light radiates to ward off the hostile guards. The lead guard stops dead in his tracks and sweats bullets as he recognizes the legendary golden mark of the hero glowing on her hand. She loudly swears in the hero name that our hero is an innocent victim of the demon and not its dark minion as she demands they stand down. The surrounding clergy and onlookers begin whispering in absolute shock. They are highly skeptical of her claims given his terrifying, bloody appearance. The old archmage steps forward and raises her heavy staff to command order and suggests they report the incident to the bishop first. A sharp burst of blue magical energy rains down and slams directly into the floor to emphasize her words. She commands everyone to remain silent, and her powerful voice instantly echoes through the grand hall. She sternly reminds the guards that the chosen hero herself just ordered them to lower their weapons and asks if they dare to disobey. The intimidated temple guards immediately look down in shame and quietly grumble but yield to her authority. Recognizing the authority of God representative, they slowly sheathe their swords and bow in submission. The head clergyman politely offers to guide the group inside the inner sanctuary to discuss the matter in private. Our hero just scowls in silence and thinks to himself that if those guards had actually tried to attack him, he would have sliced them all to pieces in seconds. ManhwaCapped. Internally, though, his gamer brain is doing a happy little dance and celebrates the fact that his dramatic roleplay triggered a perfect NPC intervention to sort out the drama. He coolly commands them to lead the way and marches past the bowing guards with absolute brooding confidence. He glances back and finds it highly amusing that both of his powerful companion NPCs are walking on absolute eggshells around him. But his happy thoughts quickly fade as he realizes his character-heavy fatigue is starting to take a massive toll. He walks down the dark, polished corridor of the temple and sighs in exhaustion from playing this hyper-realistic game for so long. He resolves to quickly gather whatever information he needs about the demons and log out immediately to get some real-world rest. They arrive at a grand candle-lit council hall where the head bishop of the temple is waiting for them. They gather around a long wooden table, and the bishop politely notes that they have discussed enough details about the recent demon sightings. Seeing our hero's exhausted face, the bishop kindly offers to let them retire to the comfortable private rooms they prepared for them. The clergyman even offers to have their meals served directly to their rooms. Our hero immediately sees through the fake politeness and realizes this is just a fancy way of telling him to stay locked up. He grumbles in his mind about the corrupt, hypocritical power struggles of the temple and realizes the game developers perfectly captured the dark lore of the original. Deciding he is completely done playing along with their boring, bureaucratic political games, he abruptly stands up from his seat. Oof! Gayfrog.jpg. He drops an absolute bone-chilling insult directly on the holy bishop and states that sleeping on the bare dirt is infinitely more pious than resting in a nest of hypocrites. That is peak edgelord behavior. The bishop is left gasping in absolute shock while our hero's subquest log officially updates and directs him to track down the demon hiding in the village. He smirks under his eye patch and realizes his quest has finally updated. He announces that he is heading out to investigate, immediately completely ignoring the bishop protests. The young priestess panics and runs after him, shouting for him to wait up. She lunges forward and desperately grabs his heavily armored arm to try and stop him. He immediately slaps her hand away with a sharp slap, and his expression turns ice cold. He glares at her menacingly and tells her to never dare touch him so recklessly again. The poor priestess looks absolutely devastated and weakly stammers an apology as tears well up in her eyes. The archmage and priestess quickly catch up as they step outside and nervously ask where he is planning to go in the middle of the night. Our hero just smirks and claims that his destination should be completely obvious. He dramatically states that he is heading out to slaughter the demon itself as his dark aura flares up under the moonlight. In his mind, he is cheering and glad that he successfully escaped those annoying priests so he can finally speedrun this quest solo. CuteCat.jpg. But his dream of a solo run is instantly crushed as the priestess blushes and happily volunteers to accompany him. He is physically struggling to hide his proud dad smile at her adorable enthusiasm. The wise archmage smiles in amusement and fully supports her partner decision. She commands the Inquisitor to prepare for departure and tells our hero that his noble actions have put her old age to absolute shame. The The stunned bishop can only watch in absolute silence as the legendary hero and the sage happily chase after a rogue mercenary. The archmage politely thanks the bishop for his concern before running out the door to join the hunt. The frustrated bishop is left standing there and grumbles about how irresponsible it is to trust a cursed demon host. The two female companions sprint down the temple stairs and happily shout that they are coming with him. A dark, spooky crow watches them go from the temple window and lets out a quiet caw. The bird glowing yellow eyes lock onto our hero and sense the dense, cursed energy sealed inside his arm. A massive flock of crows suddenly takes flight and circles the dark sky above the ancient temple. Our hero sighs in defeat as they wander into the quiet woods and accepts that he is officially stuck doing the party route after all. The archmage suggests they find a local witness to gather some clues, but our hero coldly states that there is absolutely no need. He realizes the wise archmage is only pretending to be clueless to test his capabilities. He looks at her and demands if she already knows what kind of demon they are tracking. The young priestess turns to him with a hopeful look and politely asks if she can hear his enlightened opinion on the matter. She has a tiny, happy dumpling head floating over her and looks so incredibly adorable that he almost breaks character to smile. He clenches his jaw and tells her that he still finds it hard to believe that a clumsy, naive kid like her is actually the chosen savior. The priestess pouts and loudly complains that while she has shortcomings, he should stop making such disrespectful remarks. He ignores her complaints and demands to know what specific demon species she thinks is hiding in the village. In his mind, he is highly impressed by her character and notes that despite his constant insults, she never once doubts her holy mission. She proudly reveals that the demon is a Dronzer, which is a corrupted flesh-eating zombie that feasts on the living. Our hero nods and realizes this explains the sudden outbreak. The archmage notes that they should focus their search on areas that reek of heavy decay, and the priestess suggests starting at the local graveyard where Drowgers are born. The archmage commends her knowledge, but the humble priestess insists her intellect is nothing compared to our hero legendary wisdom. Our hero struggles once more to hide his proud dad smile, and his heart completely melts under her constant compliments. He quickly clenches his fist and forces himself to focus on the grim reality of the quest. He recalls that in the original game lore, the Drowger incident always exposed dark corruption hidden deep within the local temple clergy. He wonders how this remake will handle the twist. Suddenly, the young priestess stops in her tracks and her nose twitches as she sniffs the air. She gasps and points down a dark, narrow alleyway, claiming there is a strange, foul odor coming from that direction. They slowly head down the dark stone alleyway, and the dim moonlight barely illuminates their path. Our hero reaches into his bag and pulls out a glowing, magical lantern to light up the shadows. He raises the lantern, and the warm light reveals a creepy, motionless figure standing at the end of the alley. They slowly approach the silent figure and keep their weapons held ready in case of a sudden ambush. Two-eyed .jpg, shining the light directly onto the stranger, face the priestess gasps in absolute nightmare-inducing horror. What the heck, bro? A horrifying, decayed, zombie-like man stares back at them with hollow, bloodshot eyes and confirms that the situation is about to take an incredibly dark and dangerous turn. The horrifying, decayed, zombie-like man stares back at them with hollow, bloodshot eyes and confirms that the situation is about to take an incredibly dark and dangerous turn. A horrifying, decayed, zombie-like man stares back at them with hollow, bloodshot eyes and confirms that the situation is about to take an incredibly dark and dangerous turn. Shining his lantern into the shadows of the narrow alleyway, our hero expression turns incredibly grave. The light reveals the lifeless corpse of a village resident lying on the cold stone floor to mark a tragic end. The young priestess covers her mouth in absolute horror and whispers a soft prayer for the poor victim's soul. The archmage immediately offers to go fetch the local temple guards, and the priestess quickly agrees to assist. Our hero analyzes the scene and is highly annoyed that the game developers decided to simulate a scent of decay so realistic that it is physically nauseating. He notes that tracking this beast is going to be a major hassle. He kneels down beside the body and carefully examines the wounds with a sharp, analytical gaze. He quietly mutters that they were simply too late to save him, and his voice echoes in the quiet alley. He coldly promises the deceased that he can rest in peace because he will personally take care of the revenge. A peaceful aura surrounds the victim's face and signals that he has finally found rest under their protection. The priestess kneels to offer a quiet, sincere, holy blessing for his soul. She clasps her hands tightly, and the soft starlight reflects off her face in a highly emotional display. Our hero is secretly giving the game developers a solid thumbs up and is highly impressed by this cinematic, emotional story directing. He silently stands up and keeps his cold face perfectly locked in while the priestess finishes her prayer. The archmage returns and confirms the guards are on their way. She notes that the strong scent suggests the murder occurred just moments ago, which means the beast is still nearby. She begins chanting a powerful spell, and her hands glow with a bright blue magical aura. A massive glowing runic circle expands across the stone alleyway and illuminates the entire street. With her eyes glowing with pure mana, she announces that she has successfully activated a tracking spell to follow the Draugr. Before she can even finish her explanation, our hero immediately blitzes forward and sprints down the alley to follow the trail. The Archmage complains about having to chase after him again and commands the priestess to hurry up so they do not lose him. The priestess happily follows and prepares her holy energy to purify any demonic corruption they find on the way. Our hero smiles to himself and is glad that having a glowing trail of stardust on the floor means there is absolutely no chance of getting lost. They race through the winding dark alleys of the town and follow the bright blue magical path. His sharp eye keeps tracking the trail and is completely focused on the hunt. Suddenly, he slides to a sharp halt, and his boots grind against the dirt as they reach the end of the path. The priestess gasps in disappointment and points out that they have run directly into a dead end. The glowing path stops abruptly at a massive towering brick wall. The Archmage deduces that the demon must have used its spectral abilities to phase directly through the solid wall. She suggests they find a high vantage point to scan the surrounding area, but our hero has a much cooler idea in mind. He smirks and thinks that since this is a video game with realistic physics, he might as well try some high-level parkour. The Archmage pleads with him to stop being so reckless, but it is already too late. He sprints forward and leaps directly onto the vertical brick wall and runs up the surface like a seasoned ninja. He launches himself off the wall and soars high into the moonlit night sky. He executes a flawless, graceful arc through the air and heads straight toward the high-tiled roofs. He grabs the edge of the roof with his heavily armored gauntlet and pulls himself up effortlessly. He flips over the ledge and lands gracefully on the flat roof surface. He crouches down to stabilize his balance and is completely unbothered by the sheer height. The two female companions can only stare up at him from the alleyway below in absolute stunned silence. The Archmage lets out a sigh and mutters about how incredibly reckless his combat style is. He stands victoriously on the high rooftop and the cool night breeze flutters his dark cape. He is absolutely thrilled inside and proudly celebrates his natural-born parkour talents as he boasts about how amazing the realistic wind resistance feels. He sprints across the tiled roofs and jumps from building to building with incredible speed and agility. He admits he is totally getting ahead of himself, but playing an agile Dark Knight is just too much fun to resist. He reminds himself to focus on the hunt and scans the dark streets below before the tracking spell wears off. He suddenly stops at the edge of a roof and spots a strange shadow lurking in the courtyard below. He looks down at the target and calls them a pathetic insect that thinks it can hide from his dark gaze. He narrows his glowing red eye and prepares to execute a devastating ambush attack. He leaps off the high ledge and dives straight down toward the courtyard. He lands with a heavy explosive crash and kicks up a massive cloud of dust and debris all around him. He bursts into a full-blown cartoonish villain laugh and fully embraces his peak Chunibiu edgelord persona for the invisible audience. Lolo Lolo Lola ringtone. He strikes a highly dramatic pose amidst the swirling dust and praises the developers for creating such a masterfully designed role-playing game. A dark, suffocating pillar of purple energy erupts around him as he draws his glowing sword. He proudly points his blade forward and loudly dedicates his upcoming victory to the fallen victim. A quick system tooltip reminds us that the Draugr is a lesser corpse-eating demon, but our hero could not care less about its stats. But as the dust clears, he looks around and gives a very confused look. He is completely alone in the empty courtyard and realizes his companion NPCs did not manage to load in time to witness his cool entrance. He groans and wishes his little kimchi dumpling was here to purify this terrible lingering stench of decay. He cautiously walks down the quiet, foggy alleyway and notes that the dark environment makes it a bit hard to see. Suddenly, slow, heavy footsteps echo behind him, and a creepy voice calls out the name Gretchen. He freezes in surprise and wonders if this is a hidden encounter to help him shake off those pesky temple priests. A mysterious figure wrapped in a dark, blood-stained hood slowly steps out of the fog. He stands there in complete stunned silence and wonders why on earth this creepy cultist NPC is calling him Gretchen. He is definitely a male demon knight. A system card pops up to explain the lore of demon contractors who sell their souls to demon lords in exchange for forbidden power. He stares at the hooded figure and is completely bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. Our hero is totally lost and wonders what kind of absurd development this is. Why is this guy calling him Gretchen, and does he have a death wish? The cultist smiles creepily and offers to help him escape the heretic knights so they can enjoy a festival of slaughter together. He sweats and realizes he has never heard the name Gretchen in any of his previous playthroughs of Legend of Heroes. He slowly grips his sword hilt and prepares to defend himself from the stranger. His eye goes wide as a chilling realization hits him. The system interface begins to flash as he contemplates his choice and confirms that his decision is finalized. A notification declares that a powerful ancient force residing deep within his cursed bloodline has finally begun to awaken. He is granted unearthly forbidden knowledge as dark energy begins to completely wrap around his body. He roars out in mock agony and fully commits to the dramatic aesthetic of his dark ascension. The prompt declares that he is officially free from the fragile shackles of standard humanity. He undergoes a massive legendary demon transformation and sprouts giant black wings and curved horns as dark fire flares up. Epic choir suspense. His eyes glow with a blood-red light to confirm his newfound demonic dominance. The system confirms he has unlocked the absolute path of a true, fully realized demon knight. But in reality, he is just standing there with a blank, spacey look, completely lost in his own elaborate Chunibyo daydream. He is so proud of his custom backstory. He quickly snaps back to reality and realizes the cultist is still staring at him in confusion. He figures he can try the evil Gretchen cultist route in a future playthrough, but he has to stay focused right now. He resolves to stick strictly to his current lonely edgelord concept and refuses to let his roleplay break. He draws his heavy sword and executes a swift, powerful vertical slash directly toward the cultist. A massive shockwave of purple energy tears through the alley and completely obliterates everything in its path. As the heavy dust settles, he calmly sheathes his blade and assumes the fight is already over. But he is highly irritated to see the cowardly cultist literally grab the decaying Draugr and use it as a hilarious, literal meat shield to block the entire attack. The trembling cultist quickly begs for forgiveness and sobs that he did not realize Gretchen was captured and spoke out of turn. Our hero hits him with a chilling, empty glare and mockingly repeats the word, forgiveness. He coldly promises that he will not find a single ounce of mercy even in the deepest depths of hell as he charges forward again. Panicking, the cultist desperately screams for his Draugr minion to block him once more. The armored giant Draugr knight lunges into the fray, and its glowing red eye locks onto our hero blade. The massive beast blocks his slash with its heavy steel shield, and the impact creates a deafening metallic clash. Our hero easily leaps backward to create some distance and calls the trick incredibly pathetic. The giant armored zombie swings its heavy sword and sparks fly as their weapons grind together in the narrow alley. Our hero commands the beast to get out of his way and unleashes a relentless barrage of swift counterstrikes. They trade incredibly fast blows, and the dark stone walls shake from the sheer force of their duel. He complains to himself that fighting these amorphous, decaying monsters is a total pain, since his strikes do not feel like they have any solid physical impact. He notes that the cultist active support buffs are making the Draugr defensive stats ridiculously high, which drags out the fight. He realizes it would be infinitely faster to just bypass the tank and take out the contractor first. He decides this is the perfect opportunity to test out his newly unlocked combo mechanics. He charges forward with lightning speed, and his blade glows with a sharp purple light. He executes a massive sweeping arc and slams his blade directly into the Draugr heavy defense. He recalls that using his specialized breaker skill allows the defensive penetration effect to carry over directly to his next attack. He leaps high into the air and proves that the skill remains active even if he does not execute a standard downward strike. He roars out the name of his ultimate move and releases a devastating fiery explosion of pure combat energy. A blinding, blood-red explosion completely consumes the armored Draugr and splits the battlefield wide open. The massive shockwave obliterates the monster and reduces it to piles of ash. His quest log updates immediately to confirm that the Draugr has been successfully eliminated, leaving only the cultist capture objective. He calmly walks through the thick smoke and coldly states that the annoying obstacle has finally been cleared. The terrified cultist drops to his knees and trembles in absolute horror as our hero approaches him like a grim reaper. The contractor desperately whines and cries that he never would have interfered with the merchant guild if he had known Gretchen was after them. His inner chibi is absolutely thrilled to hear this, and realizes these are the exact villains responsible for all his headaches since the opening tutorial. He is ready for some payback. The crying cultist continues to plead and claims the Demon King would be overjoyed if they bring him the hero head. Our hero just scowls and is completely unimpressed by his pathetic excuses. Suddenly, the priestess and archmage finally arrive at the scene, and the young inquisitor points her weapon at the captured sinner. The old archmage immediately recognizes him as a demon contractor, and her expression turns deeply serious. Our hero Chibi Happy Face pops up again, and is glad that his allies arrive just in time so he can squeeze information out of him without ruining his silent, murderous persona. The young priestess raises her weapon and declares that this man is a sinner who sold his body and soul to darkness. She eagerly volunteers to join the battle and help our hero cleanse the sinner. The cultist sweats in pure terror. The confused contractor screams in betrayal and demands to know why Gretchen is suddenly siding with the heretics. He continues to sob and is completely broken by the sudden turn of events. Our hero just shrugs in his mind and thinks that he has absolutely no idea what they are talking about either. He figures the game's convoluted storyline will eventually explain itself, so there is no reason to stress out over the details. He hits the cultist with a cold, mocking smile and tells him to simply prepare for his demise. He draws his glowing purple blade as the dark energy surrounds them once more. He coldly commands him to atone for his sins with his life and swings his blade down with everything he has. A blinding slash of light silences the alleyway and completes the battle. We transition back to the grand hallways of the temple, where the quiet evening moon shines through the high windows. Our hero walks alongside his companions, and his boots click softly against the polished stone floor. They successfully managed to capture the demon contractor alive and brought him down into the temple's secure dungeon. The young priestess watches them closely and keeps her holy weapon held ready. A system notification confirms that the demon contractor has been successfully secured. The captured cultist sits locked in a heavily guarded iron cell and looks completely defeated. The wise archmage holds her glowing magical chains wrapped around him to ensure he cannot escape or cast any spells. Our hero complains that she is getting in his way and acts annoyed that she did not let him just slice the guy to pieces. She calmly reminds him that keeping a high-ranking demon contractor alive for interrogation is infinitely more useful than just execution. She narrows her bright blue eyes and points out that this sinner likely has a powerful hidden backing who helped him summon such a dangerous beast. She asks him to show a little patience and states that there are far more important matters to focus on than a simple moment of anger. He just scoffs and walks away. His chibi happy face admits he actually knows that too, but usually you have to drain a boss HP to capture them, so he was just aiming for a safe finishing blow. He notes that the capture system mechanics are incredibly detailed in this remake, which makes it feel fresh yet nostalgic. He walks down the quiet corridor and is highly impressed by the sheer depth of the game's immersive world. But suddenly, a loud, sharp ringing sound starts echoing directly inside his head and catches him off guard. He looks around in confusion as a series of red warning lights begin to glitch across his vision. The red warning screens multiply rapidly and completely block his view as they clutter his interface. Just when he was enjoying his perfect roleplay run, a massive system warning flashes in front of his face and declares that his character health has slightly decreased due to real-world fatigue. Talk about a brutal wake-up call. Our main character really wanted to tag along to the interrogation room to see some high-level questioning, but instead, he has to watch them walk away without him. The issue is, the Holy Temple's environment keeps triggering annoying debuffs on his cursed arm. Every step deeper was just a constant barrage of warnings. That passive HP draining mechanic is seriously starting to chip away at his health. He already suspects this environment is major foreshadowing for a future conflict. In the original game, picking the priest route as the main story was basically easy mode, but of course, playing as the Demon Knight means dealing with the ultimate hardcore difficulty. But hey, our resident edgelord actually loves the challenge. He claims the harder the game is, the sweeter the victory. He confidently steps out, boasting that role-playing is the true endgame content for the real pros. Easy mode is just not in his vocabulary. He starts analyzing the game's old class structures and epic lore. He's totally hyped thinking about the massive cutscenes that are bound to play out later. But then, a weird thought hits him as he exits the courtyard. He wonders if he's actually stuck traveling with these NPCs all the way to the final boss. Suddenly, standing out here by himself, things feel a little too quiet. The legendary lone wolf actually admits to feeling slightly lonely without his talkative companions. His quest menu shows that the main campaign is paused until the interrogation finishes up. Looks like it's time to find some side quests to kill some time. Right as he's wondering where to go, a familiar voice calls out to him. Someone is sprinting his way at top speed. It's the priestess, and she's practically glowing with excitement. She demands to join him no matter where he's heading. Our hero is seriously starting to suspect she has some kind of built-in tracking cheat. She literally spawns the exact second he thinks of her. He tries to act cold and asks why she isn't inside helping with the prisoner. Apparently, the Archmage thought her direct presence would be too much of a distraction. So instead of letting her stay, the old lioness literally sent her out to be our hero's shadow. Talk about dumping the kid on him. He is internally screaming at the Archmage for using him as a free babysitter, but his brooding persona won't let him complain out loud. She happily falls into step right next to him and asks if they're heading out to do some more work. He sighs internally, realizing there's absolutely no escaping her high-energy personality today. He hits her with an edgy one-liner, claiming he doesn't need people to hand him information just to hunt his prey. He's basically trying to say he wants to go grind some mobs. But of course, she takes his edgy grind comment as some sort of deep, legendary statement of righteous conviction. She's practically showering him with praise, completely missing the fact that he literally just wants some easy experience points. His face is sweating bullets from the secondhand embarrassment. He realizes she's exactly that classic type of tutorial NPC designed to constantly praise the player's every single move. It's nice for the ego, but incredibly exhausting. He visualizes her as a cute, talkative little kimchi dumpling. She's society tier adorable, but her social energy is way too high. As a hardcore introvert, this level of intense extrovert energy is starting to drain his social battery. He desperately needs some peace and quiet. He laughs at how fickle his own mind is, complaining about her company right after complaining about being lonely. Meanwhile, she notes that gathering info at night might be tough. He decides they should head to the local Adventurers Guild to see if there are any active bounties. She immediately praises his brilliant investigative logic, thinking he's some kind of master strategist. He's screaming in his head, wishing he could break character just once to tell her to calm down, but his strict roleplayer honor demands he stays edgy. He laments that his dark character's lore simply doesn't permit him to be friendly. This is easily the most awkward walk of his life. They finally arrive at the Soman Adventurers Guild, which looks like a cozy haven under the night sky. The official location tag confirms they've entered the guild premises. Out of nowhere, the Archmage appears right next to them and continues the trend of hyping him up. How did this old lion finish her interrogation so fast? Our hero ignores her teasing and heads straight to the counter. He flatly demands to see any available requests related to demons. The clerk confirms his badge and explains that active demon bounties are pretty rare. He offers to show him reports of suspected sightings instead. When our hero demands to read the physical forms himself, the clerk is absolutely stunned. Apparently, a rugged mercenary who can actually read is a total shocker to the local AI. He looks over a report detailing mysterious deaths, foul odors, and a massive reward. The clerk warns him that the temple has already claimed this specific case. Our hero casually tosses the paper back and states he already solved that quest last night. The clerk's brain completely short-circuits. But privately, his inner gamer is doing some rapid math. He's seriously hoping the greedy temple priests don't try to scam him out of his massive coin payout. The Archmage steps up to help and asks the clerk if there have been any other strange disappearances or sudden rampages in the city lately. The priestess holds up her holy badge as well, letting the clerk know they are all part of the same party. The clerk suggests they ask around the streets or pay a visit to the official information guild for deeper secrets. He stares at their badges in absolute awe, realizing he's literally standing in front of an elite inquisitor and a legendary sage from the Magic Tower. Terrified of disappointing these legendary VIPs, the clerk immediately promises to dig through every single memory he has. Our hero is highly impressed by how much weight their reputations carry. The clerk begins his search while our hero silently pities the poor guy. Working the graveyard shift only to get raided by a squad of high-level heroes is a total nightmare. He clears his throat and adjusts his glasses as he finally recalls a minor rumor from the streets. The Archmage narrows her eyes, listening closely for any vital clues. He reveals that local thieves and adventurers have been complaining about a sudden, weird drop in pickpocket activity lately. It turns out multiple beggars and outcasts have suddenly started disappearing from the slums, leading locals to worry about a spreading plague. Hearing this, the young priestess slams her fist onto the counter in absolute righteous fury. She roars in anger, demanding to know how heretics could dare commit such heinous crimes right under the god's blessing. Behold, the legendary chosen hero has officially transformed into a highly hostile, crimson, angry dumpling. Our hero smirks under his eye patch and easily recognizes this as a classic scripted plot hook. There's definitely another demon boss lurking in the slums. The terrified clerk agrees that a potential demon outbreak in the city is more than enough reason to launch an investigation. The Archmage politely asks him to report any further details directly to the temple, and the clerk quickly nods in relief. Our hero walks out of the building and feels slightly bad for the poor clerk who was just trying to survive his night shift. But hey, not his problem, so he wishes him luck. He's just glad the clerk is a chunk of game data and not an actual overworked corporate employee. The priestess quickly chases after him, asking where they're headed. He coldly replies with their next destination, the slums. The Archmage agrees that the slum district is the perfect place for evil cultists to kidnap vulnerable outcasts without drawing attention. The priestess clenches her fists and her eyes shine with determination as she vows to learn from his incredible, peerless investigative skills. They march down the cobblestone streets, and their heavy footsteps echo through the quiet night as she begs to stay by his side. He recalls his character's lore and suspects that the HP-draining mechanic inside the temple was actually massive foreshadowing. He's fully expecting a future arc where he has to fight the temple for real. He can already visualize the epic boss battle that's bound to play out when that day finally comes. He wonders how she'll react when she finally discovers her beloved order is corrupt. The potential emotional damage is going to be insane. Even though they're annoying, he admits to himself that he's already going to miss his lively party members once his dive time is up. He has a total emotional breakdown in his head, crying over a fictional future cutscene that hasn't even happened yet. Talk about being overly invested. He takes a deep breath and tells himself to stop overthinking and just enjoy the gameplay while he can. Right on cue, a new quest window pops up to officially guide them through the slums. They pick up the pace and head straight into the dark, foggy alleys. The priestess curiously asks if he already knows the exact layout of the maze-like slums. He hits her with another cold response, claiming places where criminals and outcasts gather always share the exact same structural traits. Once again, his completely generic gaming logic is treated like absolute divine wisdom by his biggest fan. In reality, he's just tracking the massive cluster of red enemy dots glowing on his high-tech minimap. But of course, he can't exactly tell her that. The game's handy minimap makes navigating through the tight, foggy streets an absolute breeze. As they step deeper into the dark alleyways, the atmosphere turns incredibly heavy. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over them from the darkness ahead. The quiet, decaying district feels completely abandoned and highly unnatural. He freezes in shock as he hears a terrifying rumor from a local resident. The poor resident is trembling in fear as he repeats the shocking claim. The cowering man is completely cornered by the young inquisitor's overwhelming presence. She demands that he swears to the gods and tells them the absolute truth. She screams in pure rage and demands to know if it was truly the temple priests who dragged his missing neighbors away. Epic choir suspense. Our hero navigates through the dark, foggy alleyways of the slums and tracks the red enemy indicators glowing on his high-tech minimap. He leads his companions deeper into the district, and the quiet atmosphere feels incredibly tense and unnatural. The young priestess grips her holy mace tightly, and her green eyes scan the dark streets as she senses multiple hostile presences swarming the area. They exchange a quiet, knowing look, and are fully prepared for an inevitable ambush in the dark. Our hero just nods in silence and waits for the perfect opportunity to strike. Suddenly, a shadowy figure lunges out of the fog and snatches at our hero gold pouch before he can even blink, but his reflexes are far too fast. In a fraction of a second, he cleanly grabs the pickpocket wrist and completely locks her in a powerful, painful grip. He glares down at the captured thief, who is a dark-haired slum girl, and coldly commends her incredible courage for trying to rob a demon knight. He warns her with a bone-chilling tone to cooperate immediately if she wishes to keep both of her wrists intact. Internally, though, his gamer brain is doing a total victory dance, and he is thrilled that leaving his gold pouch exposed as bait successfully triggered a perfect side event. He reminisces about standard RPG mechanics, where quest targets are usually highlighted with bright icons to distinguish them from normal mobs. But since this game values realism, the lack of markers simply means the targets will happily come directly to him on their own. Truly a convenient door-to-door delivery service. The captured pickpocket grumbles in defeat and curses her terrible luck for running directly into a monster. The young priestess immediately raises her heavy mace and quotes holy scriptures that demand thieves pay a brutal physical price for their sins. She is fully prepared to execute immediate holy justice right there in the muddy alleyway. The Archmage gently places a hand on her shoulder and commands the young Inquisitor to calm her temple fury. She points out that while doctrines must be respected, they should never be blindly applied to every single unfortunate situation. But the stubborn priestess yells back and argues that they cannot simply overlook a criminal caught in the act. The Archmage gently reminds her that mercy is sometimes a necessary virtue and points toward our hero previous actions. The old Archmage literally envisions our edgelord hero as a holy, enlightened Buddha monk and advises the priestess to observe and learn from his peaceful ways. This is peak comedy. She suggests the young Inquisitor watch how a true master handles conflicts instead of acting rashly. The priestess looks down in silent defeat, and her beliefs are deeply conflicted by the Archmage's words. She reluctantly agrees to stand down and mutters that she is sure they have their own wise reasons. Our hero is completely dumbfounded inside and wonders why on earth the Archmage is using a literal Eastern Buddha metaphor in a Western fantasy game. Is that even legal? The captured pickpocket wriggles in frustration and demands they just tell her what they want instead of keeping her locked in this painful grip. He coldly commands her to lead them directly to whoever controls the local thieves in this district. Using the magical binding chains to keep her secured, they head deep into the slums to locate the boss. They quickly track down the chunky local gang leader who immediately trembles in fear before their overwhelming presence. The sweating boss stammers and asks if the Inquisitors themselves were not the ones dragging all the beggars away for rehabilitation. The red-haired priestess is instantly triggered and swings her mace in pure rage as she screams about blasphemy. She yells that the Grand Temple only permits rehabilitation during specific holy periods and calls his claims a horrific, unauthorized lie. She demands to know what could possibly be more important than defending the honor of her order, while the Archmage desperately tries to calm her down. Our hero just stands there looking completely bored and realizes this side quest is smoothly transitioning into the main campaign. He is highly impressed by the writing and loves the classic dark fantasy trope of the Holy Temple secretly committing atrocities. He is absolutely eating metaphorical popcorn in his head and is completely thrilled to witness the legendary Broken Beliefs protagonist arc unfold in real time. The scene holds on their shocked faces and signals that the primary story is officially starting to unravel here. He hits the gang leader with a chilling glare and demands to know exactly how many people have been taken and when it all started. The terrified boss quickly reveals that the abduction started about a month ago, with people quietly disappearing one or two at a time. He describes the captures as looking exactly like human traffickers dragging outcasts into the night, though he quickly stammers that he did not mean it literally. Our hero grits his teeth and realizes the dark metaphor is practically undeniable confirmation of the temple dark secrets. The young priestess screams in denial and demands to know what on earth he means by dragging people away. She gets so intense that the surrounding guests take a wary step back and are terrified of making her angry. The wise Archmage steps up and her voice is serious as she asks if these abductions were happening on a regular basis. The shaking bossman confirms they occurred regularly, about 2 or 3 times a week, and always during the Inquisitor-designated patrol hours. He explains that he had to warn everyone to stay locked inside during those specific hours to avoid getting taken. The Archmage looks down in deep, painful silence and realizes the horrifying truth behind his words. The priestess desperately screams in denial and insists her order would never sacrifice innocent lives for such dark purposes. Our hero just scoffs at her denial and calls her blind faith nothing but naive, pathetic nonsense. The poor girl clenches her fists tightly and her body trembles with grief as her entire world begins to crumble. He coldly reminds her that reality does not care whether she chooses to believe in it or not. Our hero Chibi Happy Face smiles and is completely thrilled to witness the classic dramatic Broken Beliefs protagonist arc. He turns back to the gang leader and demands to know where the taken outcasts are being transported. The boss man whimpers that he only receives reports from the local street kids, so he does not actually know the final destination. He glares, and the boss man quickly points to the captured pickpocket, claiming she might know more. The young thief steps forward and nervously admits she might know someone who can guide them. She asks if this demon business is truly important, and our hero just gives her a silent, cold nod. He commands her to lead the way and completely ignores her hesitant, blushing expression. She looks up at him with a slight blush, totally intimidated, but also deeply impressed by his cool aura. Our hero Chibi happily celebrates and loves the classic tsundere pickpocket trope because it is a staple of legendary RPGs. With her guiding them, they head out of the building and march back into the dark streets. Crows fly wildly across the moonlit sky and cast a highly ominous shadow over their path. They navigate deep into the narrow, filthy alleys and the damp walls close in around them. The girl turns back to warn them that they are entering the real back alleys where things get incredibly dangerous. The dark streets remain completely empty and set an incredibly tense atmosphere. She strictly warns them not to draw their swords and explains that the slum outcasts are extremely on edge right now. She glares at the red-haired priestess and notes that the locals absolutely despise anyone associated with the temple. Just as the warning screen flashes, our hero grabs the hilt of his glowing blue sword. It looks like the alleyway piece did not even last a whole minute. The pickpocket immediately panics and yells at him to keep his weapon sheathed because the locals are already on edge. She really does not want a massive brawl starting in her neighborhood. Our hero does not even flinch and keeps his cool gaze locked on the shadows. He calmly gives her a quiet warning right before making his move. He coldly tells her to put away her own weapon first before gesturing up toward the rooftops. Turns out there is already a quiet spectator watching them from above. The hooded green-haired guy flashes a confident grin and admits that our hero reaction time is genuinely impressive. He leaps down from the high-tiled roof and lands right in the middle of the alleyway with a heavy thud. The stranger stands up gracefully and reveals a pair of cat ears poking out from beneath his white hood. He immediately starts listing off our hero's highly distinct features and notes his two-toned hair and the heavy armored gauntlet. And of course he points out the legendary eye patch over the right eye and confirms there is absolutely no mistaking his identity. He bows his head slightly and welcomes him as the legendary Demon Knight. It seems our hero's edgy reputation has traveled far. The young priestess looks completely confused and whispers to ask if this mysterious beastman is actually one of his close friends. Our hero stands there in complete silence and tries to process this sudden interruption. Internally, he is completely sweating bullets and desperately tries to remember if this Catman NPC was actually part of the original game lore. The Catman quickly clarifies that they are not friends and that he only knows him by his legendary reputation. Our hero sighs in relief and is glad the game setup made him look like a popular celebrity. Keeping his cool, edgy persona locked in our hero, asks him what he actually wants, and mockingly asks if he expects a reward just for recognizing his face. The Catman laughs it off and retorts that he was actually about to ask the exact same question. His eyes grow serious as he demands to know what brought a legendary demon hunter all the way into this dark slum. But before they can answer, he asks if they came to help the temple kidnap more innocent outcasts and refers to them as the god lapdogs. This instantly triggers the priestess' legendary temper. The pickpocket quickly steps in to defuse the situation and stammers that these people actually came to investigate the recent abductions. Meanwhile, our hero is having a hilarious internal breakdown. He was already comparing his companions to cats, and now a literal catman shows up to make the feline family complete. The young thief nervously looks at our hero and hopes he will not start slashing people before they can actually talk. The Catman is completely stunned and gasps as he realizes they suspect actual demons are behind the recent disappearances. His expression turns incredibly dark as he starts putting the terrifying pieces of the puzzle together. Our hero coldly reminds him that they are only here to uncover the truth and asks if he really thinks the Holy Temple is in league with demons. The wise Archmage steps up and admits that while the temple local reputation is absolute trash, they are outsiders who want to investigate fairly. She politely begs him to cooperate with them so they can stop any more innocent residents from being dragged away into the night. The Catman stands there in silent contemplation, and his tail flicks nervously as he weighs his choices. He lets out a quiet hum and finally makes a decision after a tense moment of silence. He glares at them and tries to see if there is any deceit hidden behind their earnest expressions. He turns to the young pickpocket and commands her to go back and report these findings to the rest of the gang. The girl looks worried and asks if he is seriously planning to guide these strangers into danger all by himself. He reassures her that he can easily handle himself regardless of what happens, which prompts her to finally nod and depart. A system prompt flashes to confirm he completed the talk objectives and updates his main quest with a brand new destination. Our hero is quietly analyzing the situation and wonders if this Catman is a regular NPC representing the legendary local thieves guild. The Catman tells them to follow him, and our hero agrees, but he cannot shake the feeling that this NPC looks incredibly familiar even if it is too dark to tell. The Catman leaps forward into the shadows and prompts the panicked priestess to shout for him to wait up. The Catman moves with incredible speed and glides through the dark alleys like a true professional. The poor Archmage is panting heavily and complains that running around these messy streets is way too much exercise for her old age, but she decides to cast a powerful haste buff to keep them moving, which our hero is highly pleased to receive. Our hero notes that this entire sequence feels exactly like a classic escort and pattern control mission. He looks up at the sky and hopes he can speedrun this quest before his real-world full dive session officially times out. A system alert flashes to remind him that his remaining capsule time is slowly ticking away. They eventually burst out of the slums and transition directly into the city Grand Commercial District. The streets here are completely quiet under the giant, glowing moon with not a single resident in sight. The Catman halts in front of a building and points ahead to announce that they have finally arrived. The priestess looks completely shocked and wonders why on earth people would be dragged into a normal commercial shop. It turns out their target is a simple, peaceful-looking local vegetable shop. Talk about a highly unexpected hideout. But our hero's sharp senses instantly detect a powerful magic barrier, and he realizes it was cast by a highly skilled mage. The Catman is deeply impressed and confirms that there is indeed a massive cloaking barrier hiding the warehouse and the basement levels. His quest log updates immediately and directs them to find a way past the barrier to search for the missing outcasts. The wise Archmage analyzes the spell and notes that since the barrier is only designed for concealment, breaking it down will be a piece of cake. Our hero checks his system log and confirms that there are absolutely no stealth objectives or penalty rules for this mission. Teda, 02. The Catman casually prepares to stroll right through the front door, which prompts the panicked priestess to scream that he is completely out of his mind. He argues that they have zero intel and need to draw out the guards, but our hero coldly states that he does not care. He takes a heavy step forward and is ready to do things the loud and violent way. He delivers an incredibly edgy justification and claims that kidnapping is a far worse felony than simple trespassing anyway. He unsheathes his heavy blade and tells his companions to stay back if they are too scared to fight. Internally, though, he is absolutely exhausted and is just blurting out whatever random cool-sounding lines pop into his head. He figures that since they are just programmed companion NPCs, they are literally forced to follow him regardless of his terrible attitude. The Catman can only stare in absolute dumbfounded shock and wonders if this guy is always this incredibly reckless. The Archmage lets out a soft chuckle and admits that it has only been a week, but they have already gotten quite used to his wild antics. The young priestess gazes at his departing back, and her eyes are filled with absolute unwavering faith in his skill and conviction. She grips her heavy mace tightly and remembers how they successfully captured a high-ranking demon contractor just the previous day. The Catman is completely blown away by the news and is unable to believe they actually captured a real cultist alive. She admits she hates to doubt her order, but if the temple really is working with the demons to gather human sacrifices, she will not hold back. The Catman expression turns deadly serious, and he realizes they literally do not have a single second to waste. The priestess charges forward and loudly tells the Catman to hide in the back if he is too scared to join the crusade. The Archmage praises her growth, and she happily credits her newfound wisdom entirely to observing our hero noble actions. The poor Catman is left standing there completely speechless as the two girls sprint past him. He groans in frustration and wonders why on earth they are rushing headfirst into an ambush completely unprepared. He narrows his eyes, and his survival instincts tell him to just walk away and stay out of this mess. But he eventually sighs and sprints after them anyway while crying out that this dangerous job is definitely going to be the death of him. Sad piano. Inside the quiet vegetable shop, fresh carrots and turnips are scattered all over the wooden floorboards. Our hero turns around with a deeply irritated scowl and realizes his companions are still busy arguing outside. He stands completely alone amidst the spilled vegetables and is fully prepared to break into the dark basement and begin the real fight. Our hero does not even hesitate. He kicks the heavy basement doors completely off their hinges with a single, massive impact. Damage. He calmly steps into the darkness and notes that they have discovered a hidden underground passage beneath the shop. The young priestess and archmage quickly catch up, and her jaw drops when she sees that he has already cleared the entrance. She asks in utter shock if he took down all the guards by himself. The Catman's sweat drops and mutters that our hero truly shows absolutely zero mercy to his enemies. Our hero just casually brushes it off. Our hero strikes a smug waiting pose to keep up his edgy aesthetic, but in reality, he is loving how much the NPCs are hyping up his gameplay speed. The excited priestess does not want to get left behind, so she runs ahead and begs him to wait up for her. He slowly walks down the dark stone staircase, and his boots click softly against the steps. He suddenly pauses and narrows his eyes as a strange feeling washes over him. He checks his character arm and feels a strange tingling sensation, wondering if he is getting hit with a location-based debuff. Right on cue, the priestess gasps and shouts that she can feel a highly dense wave of demonic energy radiating directly from below. She panics and tells the archmage that they need to hurry down before the evil cultists can complete whatever dark ritual they are performing. The archmage immediately casts her powerful haste buff again and wraps their bodies in a bright, glowing blue magic. Our hero gets pretty excited and realizes this is actually going to be his very first team-based battle in this game. He is curious to see if the NPC party AI is well-coded. They sprint down the winding underground staircase together, and speed lines wrap around them as they rush into the dark abyss. At the bottom of the steps, a large dark doorway stands wide open and leads directly into a massive chamber. He smiles and is eager to see how his high-level combat skills will synergize with the priestess and archmage. A system prompt flashes on his screen and officially confirms they have entered the Soman Hidden Underpass. They burst into the massive candlelit cavern and are ready to confront whatever evil is hiding in the shadows. Our hero immediately launches a devastating crescent energy wave to clear the room. The powerful strike tears through the front ranks and sends wood and rubble flying everywhere. The hooded cultists scream in absolute panic and shout that their dark summoning ritual is not even finished yet. Their leader grits his teeth in pure rage and curses their terrible luck for getting interrupted right at the final step. The Catman leaps into the room and points at the priestess, loudly proclaiming that the chosen hero has officially arrived to execute them. The archmage gathers bright blue magical energy, while our hero blade flares up with a fierce, burning red light. The priestess strikes a highly heroic pose and swings her heavy mace as a blinding golden light radiates around her. The cultist leader desperately orders his remaining minions to buy them some time and claims they just need to survive a few more minutes. He chants a forbidden spell, and a swirling vortex of dark purple energy erupts from his outstretched hand. He commands the slaves of hell to rise and tear the intruders apart as he summons an army of undead. A horde of ancient skeletons claw their way out of the dirt, and their hollow eyes glow with absolute malice. The archmage asks the Catman to provide some covering fire while she prepares a high-tier spell, and he confidently nods in agreement. The priestess screams her holy battle cry and charges straight into the center of the skeleton horde with her shield raised high. She effortlessly deflects their bony claws and creates a solid wall of defense to protect the backline. Our hero calmly steps past her and recites his signature edgy line before leaping into the fray. He executes a series of incredibly fast slashes and completely shatters multiple skeletons with every single swing. He coldly states that he has absolutely no intention of yielding the front lines because he wants to hog all the action for himself. The young priestess stands there looking completely dumbfounded by how aggressively fast he is clearing the battlefield. She tearfully complains that while he is incredibly strong, he is literally leaving absolutely nothing for her to fight. Determined to prove her worth as the chosen hero, her eyes flash with intense golden light as she prepares to attack. She slams her heavy mace down with everything she has and pulverizes a group of skeletons into dust. Our hero is silently panicking inside. If this over-enthusiastic NPC keeps stealing his kills, his precious experience bar will never level up. Brain fart. As the skeletons surround him, our hero begins to realize that the mechanics of this battle are playing out exactly like a classic raid. The cultist leader shouts into the dark void and proclaims that he has prepared enough fresh flesh and blood to unleash the ultimate darkness. A massive swarm of high-level draugrs and skeletons rise from the dark magic circles and completely flood the cavern. But the dark magic begins to backfire and violently consumes the cultist leader body as he screams about Gretchen betrayal. Scream. He watches the cultist get swallowed by his own spell and coldly notes that the fool literally made himself the first sacrifice. He prepares to launch his ultimate combat skill and dark purple energy swirls around his blade. The priestess cries out in worry as she sees the massive wave of dark energy gathering directly around his cursed arm. Even the wise archmage and the Catman panic and are terrified that his demonic corruption is finally going to consume his soul. The dark energy explodes outward and completely swallows our hero body in a massive vortex of pure darkness. She screams out his name in absolute heartbreak and fears that their legendary savior has finally fallen to the dark side. Determined to save his soul, she unleashes her ultimate holy light and smashes her way toward him with reckless fury. But our hero easily leaps straight out of the dark smoke and soars high into the air as the cursed energy wraps around him. He lands gracefully right in the center of the demon horde and looks like an unstoppable god of destruction. He smirks to himself and thinks that this dramatic misunderstanding is actually going to make his boss fight look infinitely cooler. The starry-eyed priestess gasps in pure admiration and is completely amazed that he managed to control the dark corruption so effortlessly. He raises his glowing dark blade and loudly declares that he will wipe out every single monster in this room with one clean blow. He thrusts his heavy sword directly into the stone floor and channels all of his dark mana into the cracked ground. A massive, explosive shockwave of cursed energy rips across the entire cavern floor and pulverizes the skeleton army. The sheer impact is so incredibly strong that even the priestess is forced to take cover behind her heavy steel shield. She can only watch in absolute awe and is completely blown away by his terrifying and unmatched combat power. As the dust settles, the heavily injured cultist leader looks up in absolute horror and stammers that his terrifying power must mean he is actually the legendary Gretchen. Our hero does not even say a word and walks through the ash and smoke like a cold, grim reaper. The terrified cultist lets out a high-pitched shriek and completely loses his mind as the demon knight closes in on him. His single visible eye glows with a cold, bloodthirsty red light and completely seals the cultist's tragic fate. The desperate cultist screams for his remaining skeletons to block the path, but his voice is trembling in pure, unadulterated fear. He crawls backward in absolute panic and sobs while begging our hero to stay away from him. He completely breaks down and cries as he begs for his pathetic life to be spared as our hero raises his sword. But right as our hero prepares the final blow, a strange and highly ominous shadow begins to creep over the room. He delivers one final bone-chilling one-liner before executing a swift, clean horizontal strike. The remaining cultists and skeletons are instantly sliced to pieces, which completely silences the underground cavern. He stands victoriously amidst the lifeless piles of bone and ash, and the dark ritual circle is completely destroyed. This battle is officially won. As the smoke clears, our hero finally takes a deep breath and pants heavily. Internally, he is completely freaked out and realizes he almost got himself wiped out. He reviews his battle logs and grumbles that he barely survived that short but brutal melee. His notifications are flooded with warnings about his rapidly decreasing health points. He gazes at his dark crackling blade and is deeply shocked by the absurd damage output of his newly unlocked ground crash skill. He wonders if the developers accidentally broke the game balance by giving players such high-tier skills in the starting zone. He reads the helpful system tip window, which warns him that if a game gives you overpowered skills this early, it simply means the upcoming enemies are going to be absolute nightmares. This developer logic is highly concerning. He snaps back to reality and suddenly remembers that he actually has other party members with him, so he wonders what they are doing. Right on cue, the red-haired priestess steps forward and her holy mace crackles with intense golden flames. She charges into the remaining cultist ranks with pure righteous fury and is determined to fulfill her sacred duty as the chosen hero. She unleashes a blinding golden blast of divine energy and completely vaporizes any skeletons in her path. She delivers a crushing overhead strike to a screaming skeleton and yells for the heretics to face their final judgment. Meanwhile, the exhausted Catman is busy defending the backline and loudly asks the Archmage how much longer he has to cover her casting time. The White Lion Archmage smirks, and her staff swirls with a massive amount of dense, glowing blue mana as she prepares her spell. A giant, majestic magic circle expands across the entire chamber ceiling as she warns her allies to take cover. She slams her staff down and releases a devastating storm of bright blue fireballs that completely rain down upon the heretics. Damage. The remaining cultists are completely engulfed in the holy blue flames and scream in absolute agony as their plans are reduced to ash. Scream. Our hero stands there in complete silence and watches the lopsided slaughter unfold right before his eyes. He starts sweating profusely and suddenly realizes he might have accidentally blurted out his internal gamer complaints out loud. He desperately hopes these realistic NPCs did not hear him. The priestess happily celebrates their flawless victory and comments on what an incredibly impressive team they have formed. The Catman sheathes his daggers and scans the quiet cavern to check if they manage to wipe out every single heretic. She runs up to our hero and cheerfully announces that every last remnant of the cult has been successfully purged, though she sighs that it is a shame they could not capture a live prisoner for interrogation. Our hero remains silent and gives her a mysterious cold stare that immediately triggers her starry-eyed admiration. Without saying a word, he steps forward and heavily plants his boot directly onto a trembling, blood-stained hand on the floor. The dying cultist leader coughs up blood under his heel and weakly whispers that they will deeply regret interfering with his plans. He desperately reaches out his hand and whispers a final, ominous warning about his demonic majesty inevitable arrival. Our hero glares down at him with a cold, bloodthirsty look and tells him to shut his mouth. He declares that a pathetic insect like him has absolutely no right to speak his name, and keeps his brooding edgelord aura fully locked in. With his final breath spent, the heretic leader head drops lifelessly onto the cold stone floor. But even in death, a creepy, blood-stained grin remains plastered across his face. The eerie sound of his mocking laughter echoes through the quiet chamber and sets a highly ominous tone. He claims that even if they think they won today, they are merely pawns in a much larger, terrifying game of chess. He raises a trembling hand to the dark sky and loudly promises that their supreme demon king is still watching. His voice fades out as he gasps his final words and leaves behind a chilling message of doom. A deep pool of dark, cursed blood begins to expand across the stone floor, and his lifeless body completely turns to ash. The priestess walks over, and her face is filled with deep worry as she tries to process his ominous final words. Suddenly, she screams in panic and wildly waves her arms as she tells our hero to fall back immediately. She warns him that she can feel a terrifyingly powerful surge of demonic energy gathering directly beneath the magic circle. Before they can even run, the stone floor violently shatters and releases a massive pillar of blood-red energy. The explosive impact catches our hero completely off guard and sends him flying backward through the air. A blinding explosion of pure demonic heat consumes the entire center of the chamber. The brave priestess leaps in front of him and raises her shield to block the residual blast before asking if he is hurt. Our hero is completely dizzy on the floor while she panics and asks if his eyes are just for decoration, since he did not dodge the attack. Internally, our hero is screaming in absolute agony. Even with the game pain settings turned down, having his spine slammed into a stone pillar feels like a complete nightmare. The Archmage and Catman stare into the dark smoke, and their faces go completely pale as they witness a terrifying shadow emerge. A giant, monstrous reptile beast towers over them, and its glowing purple eyes lock onto their tiny figures. The Catman nervously whispers and wonders if this boss is too high level for them. Our hero sighs in defeat and realizes that since the system did not give them a quest to actually interrupt the ritual, this boss fight was a completely mandatory scripted event. The massive demon reptile opens its giant jaws and lets out a deafening roar that shakes the entire underground temple. The massive beast stands ready to attack, and its powerful tail whips the stone walls into dust. The brave priestess immediately steps forward and raises her heavy mace to protect the party. She chants a holy prayer, and her body glows with a brilliant divine light. She begs her god to grant her the ultimate strength to stand tall against this ancient evil. The massive reptile lunges forward with a devastating strike, but she stands her ground and blocks the entire impact with her glowing shield. She screams out in determination, and the sheer impact creates blinding golden sparks all around her. Her arms tremble from the immense pressure, but she refuses to take a single step backward. Our hero is highly impressed by her performance, and quietly marvels at how absurdly durable the priestess tank class is in this remake. But then his classic DPS gamer brain kicks in. He wonders why on earth she is wasting so much stamina blocking the blow when she could have easily just dodged it. The worried Catman sweat drops and asks if standing directly in front of a giant dragon jaws is actually a viable combat strategy. He turns to the Archmage and desperately asks if she knows any vital weaknesses they can target. She explains that this is a legendary knocker demon and warns him that its fangs carry a deadly poison. Our hero just smirks and thinks that since she is doing such a great job holding the aggro, it is finally time for him to do his job. He unsheathes his sword and sprints forward, fully prepared to show them the true power of a high-tier DPS class. He leaps high into the air and aims his glowing purple blade directly toward the monster giant head. The monster eyes widen as it senses the terrifying wave of cursed energy descending upon it. Our hero swings his dark blade down with everything he has left and is determined to end this fight in a single strike. His single visible eye flashes with a brilliant, menacing purple light as his ultimate skill fully activates. He unleashes his legendary breaker skill, and a massive pillar of dark purple energy completely slices through the monster's skull. Damage. The sheer force of the blow shatters the beast head and sends a massive spray of dark blood raining down upon the cavern. The entire cavern goes completely silent as the giant monster body instantly collapses into lifeless pieces. The massive demon lizard lies dead on the stone floor and is completely obliterated by a single terrifying strike. Our hero stands victoriously amidst the bloody remains, but his face is completely flat. He can only let out a highly confused, dazed noise as the reality of his awesome power sinks in. The giant monster headless carcass slumps heavily onto the stone ground and completely brings an end to the terrifying battle. The surviving cultist stares in complete paralyzing disbelief and stammers, demanding to know how on earth he took down a colossal beast in a single hit. Another heretic screams in horror and cries out that the knocker steel hard scales should have easily deflected any physical strike. Our hero, Chibi Inner Self, is actually screaming the exact same thing in complete agreement. He is just as shocked as they are that the boss went down so easily. He explains that standard gamers usually play for the challenge of slowly breaking down a boss multi-stage health bar. A complete one-shot kill like this completely skips the fun of the encounter and makes it feel way too easy. He grumbles that in the original PC version, the knocker was a highly challenging boss that definitely could not be instantly decapitated. He stares warily at the severed neck and wonders if this is just a trick and some second-phase horror is about to emerge. He quickly turns his head as a sudden rustling sound echoes through the cavern. A swift and blinding slash of green and white light cuts through the shadows and catches a sneaky heretic off guard. The Catman suddenly leaps in front of him and effortlessly blocks a hidden assassin trying to sneak up from his blind spot. He cheekily tells our hero to watch his blind spots and admits that he also got a bit distracted staring at that massive severed dragon head. Our hero is pleasantly surprised and silently thanks the game developers for giving him such a highly competent, responsive party member. But as he takes a much closer look at the Catman distinct features under the bright magic light, a massive wave of realization hits him. This Beastman matches the official promotional art for the Thief class high-tier advancement perfectly. Seeing our hero in tense, unblinking glare, the poor thief immediately panics and nervously backs away while apologizing. He quickly breaks his gaze and decides to figure out the Catman's actual connection to the main quest later. He turns his focus back to the dead dragon and notices a strange, glowing red essence gathering around the neck. He recalls that while NPCs always assume the knocker weakness is its head, the actual game lore states something completely different. He stands his ground and grips his hilt, completely prepared to perform a proper finishing blow on the true core. He spots the single reverse scale growing on the dragon neck, which is the legendary vulnerability of all Eastern dragons. In Legend of Heroes, dragon-type monsters always have a hidden reverse scale that players must target to bypass their high defense. Normally, players have to grind down their health bar for this weak spot to be exposed, but his massive single-hit damage forced it out instantly. He looks at the squirming reverse scale and mockingly states that the beast is pointlessly tenacious for trying to survive. He swings his blade down and declares that its struggle ends here as he targets the glowing red scale. He mutters that while a clean thrusting attack would look infinitely more dramatic, he will just have to settle for another ground smash. Cursed purple energy erupts around his blade once more as he triggers the skill. He slams his sword down and the massive shockwave completely pulverizes the remains of the dragon neck. He stands gracefully amidst the clearing smoke and is completely satisfied with his quick performance. But suddenly, the stone floor begins to glow with a strange blinding golden light instead of purple. He stands there completely frozen and looks around in utter confusion as the golden light expands. He looks down at the glowing remains and desperately wonders what on earth is happening to his game mechanics. He checks his logs and confirms he definitely inputted the correct commands for a ground crash. Then he realizes he spent all his skill points upgrading ground crash to breaker, which means he literally does not even have a basic thrusting skill unlocked yet. While he is busy troubleshooting his skill tree, the surviving cultist screams in agony and is still completely convinced that our hero is their traitorous comrade, Gretchen. Our hero just wonders if the NPC AI is bugging out. The priestess steps forward and points her glowing weapon at the weeping cultist while commanding him to confess his sins. She turns to our hero and politely asks if he wishes to personally execute this final heretic. Our hero decides to quickly finish this quest and plans to file a bug report about the weird skill triggers as soon as he logs out. The Catman is surprised there was still a survivor. He glares down at the trembling cultist and coldly tells him to keep babbling his pathetic excuses. He slowly raises his heavy sword and mockingly asks how much of his wrath the cultist can actually handle. The poor cultist shrinks back in absolute paralyzing terror as the blade begins to glow. Our hero smirks and declares that he is highly curious to see the result himself. But the lioness archmage suddenly places a hand on his shoulder and prompts our hero to coldly ask if she is planning to interfere with his kill again. She politely explains that she only wants him to execute the prisoner as cleanly as possible so they can use his intact remains as undeniable proof for the temple. She pats his shoulder and whispers that the heretic has been talking way too much trash anyway. Our hero sighs in annoyance and begrudgingly agrees to her request. With a single, incredibly clean strike, his blade slices through the air. The heretic head rolls across the stone floor and completely brings an end to the dark cult reign. The Catman nervously clears his throat and calls out to get their attention. He politely asks if he can request a minor favor before they pack up and leave. He explains that he wants to take at least one of the cultist bodies with him to show the survivors. His eyes grow incredibly sad as he reveals that many of his missing family and gang members are sitting among the dead. He admits he wants to give the grieving slum survivors a proper chance to send off their lost loved ones. The priestess looks highly sympathetic, but she firmly reminds him that despite his tragic situation, the temple law strictly forbids private revenge. She offers to hold a grand memorial service at the temple instead to console their troubled souls. The Catman scoffs in absolute disgust and mockingly asks how a prayer service held by the very temple that kidnapped his family is supposed to be comforting. He calls her holy logic completely absurd. The priestess gets defensive and yells that the Grand Temple will thoroughly audit this branch to ensure justice is properly served. The thief laughs mockingly and asks if they are just going to write off the slum victims as simple criminals anyway. She screams that her order simply follows the sacred law. The Catman snarls and demands to know how punishing dead victims is reverent before calling her holy temple nothing but a gang of hypocritical thieves. His green eyes flash with pure, unbridled fury, and he clenches his fists, completely ready to start another fight right there. Before he can even swing, our hero-heavy boot lands squarely in the Catman chest and instantly kicks him onto the floor. Damage. The priestess gasps in shock as our hero grabs the groaning thief by his cloak and coldly commands him to get up. He hits the priestess with an icy glare and reminds her that if her holy temple had actually done their job and patrolled the slums fairly, they would have caught these cultists weeks ago. He coldly commands the Catman to keep his mouth shut and simply follow his lead if he wishes to stay alive. He warns the thief that if the captured cultist escapes under his watch, he will personally execute him himself. The Catman quickly agrees with a sweat drop. His primary quest updates immediately, and our hero, Inner Gamer, is absolutely thrilled to see this long side mission finally wrapping up. He notices the priestess is staring at him with teary, sparkling eyes of pure devotion again. He silently begs his little kimchi dumpling to stop and reminds us he only did it to maintain his edgy character lore and grind affinity. He stretches his arms and grumbles that his entire virtual body is super sore from all the combat. He is completely ready to log out, take a nice hot shower, and crash directly onto his real-world bed. He opens up his system menu and happily clicks the official logout button to finally end his long and exhausting gaming session. But instead of logging out, a giant flashing crimson warning screen pops up directly in front of his face. It declares that the command is completely unavailable. He frantically spams the button, but the system continuously rejects his requests with a heavy error sound. A cold sweat drips down his face as his eyes go wide with pure, unadulterated horror. He stands completely frozen as he realizes he is literally trapped inside this game.